Greetings, dear viewers. You're watching Harry's. We have prepared something special for you today. What if Harry bonded with Fawkes at age 5 and mastered Phoenix Fire magic? Your likes and subscriptions keep this channel alive. If you enjoy our content, please show your support. Now, sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. Chapter 1, The Fiery Bond. Little Harry Potter huddled in the darkness of his cupboard, trying not to cry. His stomach growled, reminding him that Aunt Petunia hadn't let him eat dinner again. All because he'd accidentally turned his teacher's hair blue when she'd yelled at him. Harry didn't even know how it happened. Things just happened around him sometimes. Freak, Uncle Vernon had spat, shoving him into the cupboard. 3 days. No meals. Maybe then you'll learn. Harry curled tighter into himself. He was only 5, but he'd already learned that crying made things worse. The Dursleys hated noise almost as much as they hated him. A spider crawled across his thin blanket. Harry watched it, imagining what it might be like to be that small, to just disappear into a crack in the wall whenever the Dursleys came stomping by. "I wish I could disappear," Harry whispered. Something stirred in his chest then, a warm feeling, like someone had heard him. Harry froze, confused by the sensation. It felt like hope. He couldn't explain it, but suddenly he knew he needed to get out of the cupboard. Out of the house. Harry pressed his ear against the cupboard door. The Dursleys were watching the telly, Uncle Vernon's booming laugh mixing with Dudley's squeals. No one would notice if he slipped out for a bit. With practiced quiet, Harry eased the cupboard door open, wincing at the tiny squeak of the hinges. No one came running, so he tiptoed down the hall, past the living room, and to the front door. Reaching up on his tiptoes, he turned the knob slowly and slipped outside into the cool evening air. Freedom. Harry ran, his 2 big shoes flopping against the pavement as he sprinted away from number 4, Privet Drive. He didn't care where he was going. Just away. He ended up at the little park 3 streets over. Nobody was there this late. The swing swayed gently in the breeze, and Harry climbed onto one, pushing himself back and forth with his toes barely touching the ground. "I wish I had someone," he whispered to the darkening sky. Anyone. The stars were just starting to appear, pinpricks of light in the growing darkness. Harry stared up at them, wondering if his parents could see him from wherever they were. Aunt Petunia said they'd died in a car crash, but sometimes Harry dreamed of a bright green light and a woman screaming. It didn't sound like a car crash. A shooting star streaked across the sky, and Harry closed his eyes tight. "I wish I wasn't alone anymore," he whispered fiercely. The air around him suddenly felt warmer. Warmer than it should on a cool spring evening. Harry opened his eyes and gasped. Hovering in front of him was the most beautiful bird he had ever seen. It was crimson and gold, the size of a swan but infinitely more majestic. Its long tail feathers shimmered with firelight, and its black eyes regarded Harry with unmistakable intelligence. "Hello," Harry said softly, not questioning why he was talking to a bird. Something about it just felt right. "Are you real?" The bird trilled a single note that seemed to wrap around Harry like a hug. It was the most beautiful sound he'd ever heard. "You're beautiful," Harry breathed. "What are you?" The bird flew closer, hovering just in front of Harry's swing. It tilted its head, studying him, and then let out another musical note. Harry felt the sound deep in his chest, as if the bird was singing directly to his heart. Without thinking, he reached out a small hand toward the magnificent creature. The bird didn't fly away. Instead, it landed gracefully on Harry's outstretched arm. It wasn't heavy at all, more like warm sunshine resting on his skin. "You're magic, aren't you?" Harry whispered. "Like me." The bird trilled again, and suddenly Harry felt words forming in his mind that weren't his own. "Yes, Harry Potter. I am Fawkes. I have found you at last." Harry nearly fell off the swing. "You can talk." "In my head. I can communicate with those I choose." The voice was warm and ancient, like fire that had been burning for 1,000 years. You called, and I came. I called you. Harry's green eyes widened behind his taped-up glasses. But I don't even know what you are. I am a phoenix. Pride resonated through the mental connection. And you, Harry Potter, have a destiny intertwined with fire and rebirth. Harry frowned, trying to understand. But I'm just Harry. I'm nobody special. The phoenix, Fawkes, made a sound that felt like laughter in Harry's mind. You are far more than you know, young one. The magic in your blood called to me. It is rare for a phoenix to bond with a human so young, but your need is great, and your heart is pure. Bond? Harry asked, his voice small with wonder. Fawkes hopped closer, settling against Harry's chest, his warm feathers brushing against Harry's chin. If you accept, we will be connected. I will be your companion, your protector. And you will learn the ways of phoenix fire. Harry didn't fully understand what that meant, but he knew one thing for certain, he'd never have to be alone again. Yes, he whispered. Please. Fawkes let out a triumphant cry that echoed across the empty playground. Then, he pressed his golden head against Harry's forehead, right over the lightning bolt scar. Fire exploded behind Harry's eyes, not burning, but warm and bright and alive. He gasped as magic surged through him, connecting with something deep inside that had always been there, waiting to be awakened. When Harry opened his eyes again, the world looked different. Brighter. More alive. The bond is formed, Harry Potter. Fawkes's mental voice was even clearer now. We are connected. Harry felt tears rolling down his cheeks, but for once, they weren't sad tears. I won't be alone anymore. Never again. Harry reached up and stroked Fawkes's feathers. They were impossibly soft and warm beneath his fingers. There is much for you to learn, Fawkes continued. But first, we must return to your dwelling. It grows late, and those who watch over you will be looking. Harry snorted. The Dursleys don't look for me. They'd be happier if I disappeared. Fawkes's eyes flashed with something that felt like anger. That will change. I will not allow my bonded to be mistreated. Harry's heart swelled with gratitude, but worry quickly followed. They can't see you. They hate anything, not normal. They'd hurt you. Peace, young one. Fawkes's mental voice was soothing. Phoenixes have magic of their own. I can remain unseen when I choose. But you must return. Harry sighed and nodded. Even with his new magical friend, he knew he had nowhere else to go. They made their way back to Privet Drive, Fawkes flying high above where no curious neighbors would spot him. When they reached number 4, Harry hesitated at the front door. Go in, Fawkes encouraged. I will follow, unseen. Harry pushed open the door, bracing himself for Uncle Vernon's shouting. But the house was quiet. He tiptoed toward his cupboard, hoping nobody had noticed his absence. Boy! Uncle Vernon's voice thundered from the living room. Where have you been? Harry froze as his uncle's massive form filled the hallway, face purple with rage. I just went to the park, Harry stammered. I didn't, sneaking out when you're meant to be punished. Vernon advanced on him, meaty hand raised. I'll teach you. Suddenly, the air between them shimmered with heat. Vernon stopped mid-stride, confusion replacing anger on his face. What the, he began, but the words died as a small flame appeared in the air between him and Harry. The flame danced and spun, growing larger until it formed the unmistakable shape of a bird with its wings spread wide in protection. Vernon Dursley let out a strangled sound and stumbled backward. What is that? What have you done? Harry was just as shocked. He could feel Fawkes's presence, but he hadn't expected this. I told you, Fawkes's voice sounded in Harry's mind, I will not allow you to be mistreated. The fiery apparition drifted closer to Vernon, who scrambled further back, colliding with the wall. Petunia, he bellowed. Petunia. Harry's aunt came rushing from the kitchen, dish towel in hand. She took one look at the fiery bird hovering in her hallway and let out a blood-curdling shriek. What is that? What has the boy done now? She pressed herself against the wall beside her husband. Harry felt a surge of courage. With Fawkes's fire protecting him, for the first time in his life, the Dursleys looked afraid of him instead of the other way around. This is my friend, Harry said, his small voice steadier than it had ever been in this house. He doesn't like how you treat me. Vernon's face contorted with rage and fear. Now you listen here, boy. The fiery bird flapped its wings, sending sparks cascading through the air. They vanished before touching anything, but the message was clear. Tell them, Fawkes prompted. Tell them things will change. Harry straightened his shoulders. I'm not staying in the cupboard anymore. And I need real food. And Dudley's old clothes don't fit me. He couldn't believe the words coming out of his mouth. He'd never dared to make demands before. Vernon looked like he might explode, but Petunia grabbed his arm, her face white as chalk. Vernon, she hissed. It's like them. Like what she could do. Harry's eyes widened. She. Was Petunia talking about his mother? Vernon's gaze darted between Harry and the fiery phoenix. This is freakishness. We won't have it in our house. Remind them of their duty, Fawkes suggested. You took me in, Harry said, the words coming from somewhere deep inside him. You're supposed to take care of me. If you don't. He let the sentence hang, not sure himself what the threat was. The fiery phoenix drifted higher, its flames licking the ceiling without burning it. Petunia tugged harder at Vernon's arm. The spare bedroom, she said quickly. He can have Dudley's second bedroom. I will not, Vernon began, but the phoenix fire flared brighter, and he swallowed his objection. Fine. The spare room. But one hint of more of this abnormality, and, no, Harry said quietly. No more threats. No more calling me freak. No more starving me. Or my friend will come back. Harry couldn't believe his own courage. It was as if the phoenix fire had ignited something inside him too, something that had always been there but had been smothered by years of mistreatment. Vernon and Petunia exchanged terrified glances. Then Vernon jerked his chin toward the stairs. Take the room then. But keep that thing under control. The fiery apparition of Fawkes slowly faded, but Harry could still feel the phoenix's presence nearby, watching, protecting. Harry walked up the stairs for the first time in his life, not as a servant ordered to clean, but as someone with a right to be there. He entered Dudley's second bedroom, now his, and closed the door behind him. The moment they were alone, Fawkes materialized on the rickety desk by the window, his real form even more magnificent than the fiery apparition had been. That was brilliant. Harry exclaimed, keeping his voice low. How did you do that? Phoenix fire takes many forms, Fawkes explained. What you saw was merely an extension of my will, and yours. Mine. Harry sat on the edge of the bed, his bed now. I didn't do anything. You did. Our bond is new, but already your magic responds to mine. The fire answered your need for protection. Harry tried to process this. So I can make fire too. Like you did. In time. The magic of the phoenix is ancient and powerful. You will learn gradually, as you grow. Harry leaned against the headboard, head spinning with possibilities. Just this morning, he'd been a nobody, the Dursleys' unwanted burden. Now he had a magical friend, a real bedroom, and apparently, the ability to summon fire. Can all wizards do what we just did? Harry asked. Fawkes tilted his head. So you know you're a wizard. Well, yeah. Aunt Petunia calls me a freak, but I know it's magic. I can make things happen sometimes. But never anything like that fire bird. No, Harry. What we did is unique. Phoenix fire is not something taught at wizard schools. It is rare for a phoenix to bond with a human at all, let alone a child. But your magic called to me across time and space. Why me? Harry asked, voicing the question that had haunted him his whole life. Why was he so different? That is a longer story than one night allows, Fawkes replied. But know this, you were marked for greatness long before our paths crossed. Harry's fingers automatically went to the lightning scar on his forehead. Because of this? Aunt Petunia said I got it in the car crash that killed my parents. Anger flashed through their bond. There was no car crash. Your parents were murdered by a dark wizard, the worst of his kind. And you, Harry Potter, somehow survived the killing curse that none before had ever survived. That is why you bear that mark. Harry's breath caught in his throat. Murdered? By another wizard? His name was Voldemort. Even in thought-speech, Fawkes seemed to speak the name with caution. Most wizards fear to speak his name even now. Your parents defied him 3 times before he came for them. For you. For me. Why would he want to kill a baby? Fawkes ruffled his feathers. That is part of the longer story. For tonight, it is enough that you know the truth of your parents' courage, and of your own remarkable survival. Harry leaned back against the pillow, overwhelmed. In one night, his entire understanding of his life had changed. I wish I could remember them, he whispered. Fawkes hopped closer, settling beside Harry on the pillow. Memory is a phoenix's gift. Close your eyes. Harry did as instructed. Fawkes pressed his feathery head against Harry's temple, and suddenly, Harry wasn't in Dudley's second bedroom anymore. He was in a cozy living room. A man with untidy black hair just like his own was making colorful smoke rings with a wand for a baby's amusement. The baby, Harry himself, laughed and tried to catch the smoke. A woman entered the room, her long red hair falling around her shoulders, her green eyes, Harry's eyes, full of love. James, she chided gently, you'll get him too excited before bedtime. He's going to be a Quidditch player, Lily. James protested with a grin. Never too early to work on those reflexes. Harry watched, tears streaming down his face, as his mother scooped him up and his father wrapped his arms around them both. They were real. His parents were real people who had loved him. The scene faded, and Harry was back in the bedroom, still crying. How did you do that? He asked Fawkes. Was that real? A real memory? Not your memory, but mine. I was bound to Albus Dumbledore when he visited your parents in hiding. What you saw happened a week before they died. Albus Dumbledore? Harry wiped his eyes. Who's that? The greatest wizard of this age. Headmaster of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, where you will go when you turn 11. There's a school for magic. Harry couldn't keep the excitement from his voice. Indeed. Your name has been down since birth. Fawkes's mental voice held amusement. Though I suspect your arrival will cause quite a stir now that we are bonded. Will you stay with me? When I go to this school. I am yours now, Harry Potter, as much as I am my own. Our paths are joined until death, and perhaps beyond, for phoenixes know the secret of rebirth from ashes. Harry stroked Fawkes's crimson feathers, overwhelmed with gratitude. I don't understand why this is happening to me, but, thank you. Sleep now, Fawkes urged gently. Tomorrow, we begin your first lessons in Phoenix Fire. Harry wanted to protest that he was too excited to sleep, but now that Fawkes mentioned it, exhaustion was settling over him. It had been the most extraordinary day of his young life. As he drifted toward sleep, Harry felt safer than he ever had before. With Fawkes watching over him, for the first time, Privet Drive didn't feel like a prison. It felt like the beginning of something wonderful. Miles away in Scotland, in a castle hidden from non-magical eyes, Albus Dumbledore sat up abruptly in his office chair. Something had changed. He could feel it in the ancient magic that connected him to his phoenix familiar. "Fawkes," he called, looking to the golden perch where the phoenix usually rested. The perch was empty. Dumbledore stroked his long silver beard, a frown creasing his forehead. Fawkes occasionally left on his own mysterious errands, but never without some form of goodbye. And never had Dumbledore felt such a significant shift in their magical connection. He closed his eyes, reaching out with his considerable magical senses. The bond was still there, but it had transformed. As if Fawkes had formed another connection, one that now took precedence. "Curious," Dumbledore murmured. "Very curious indeed." He rose and moved to a silver instrument on his desk, tapping it with his wand. It began to spin and emit puffs of smoke that formed into shapes, a phoenix, a small boy, and a thread of light connecting them. Dumbledore's blue eyes widened behind his half-moon spectacles. "Harry," he breathed. "Oh, my boy, what have you done?" He quickly crossed to the fireplace, threw in a handful of flue powder, and called out, "Minerva McGonagall's quarters." When the stern face of his deputy headmistress appeared in the flames, Dumbledore didn't waste time on pleasantries. "Minerva, I need you to check on Harry Potter immediately." McGonagall's expression sharpened with concern. "Has something happened to the boy?" "Are those Muggles?" "I'm not certain," Dumbledore interrupted. "But I believe Fawkes has formed a familiar bond with young Harry." McGonagall's mouth fell open in shock. "A familiar bond? With a 5-year-old child? Albus, that's unheard of." "Indeed. Which is why I need eyes on the situation immediately. Be discreet, Minerva. If what I suspect is true, this changes everything." As McGonagall's face disappeared from the flames, Dumbledore sank back into his chair, his mind racing. A phoenix bond was rare enough among adult wizards. For a child as young as Harry to attract and sustain such a bond, the magical implications were staggering. The prophecy, Dumbledore whispered to himself. Could this be the power he knows not? He glanced at the empty perch once more, a mixture of concern and wonder in his aged face. Whatever had happened, Harry Potter's path had just veered dramatically from the course Dumbledore had so carefully planned. Harry woke to sunlight streaming through uncurtained windows. For a moment, he was disoriented. This wasn't his cupboard. Then the memories of the previous night came rushing back, and he sat up quickly. "Fawkes," he called softly. "I am here." The phoenix was perched on the open windowsill, his feathers gleaming in the morning sun. "It wasn't a dream," Harry said with relief. "No dream, young one." Harry scrambled out of bed and padded to the window. Outside, Privet Drive looked exactly the same as it always had, neat gardens, identical houses, nothing to suggest that magic existed in the world. But everything had changed. "You said we'd start lessons today," Harry reminded the phoenix eagerly. "Indeed." Fawkes sounded amused. "But first, you must eat. Growing wizards need strength for magic." Harry's stomach growled in agreement. Normally, he'd have been up for hours already, cooking breakfast for the Dursleys. Would they expect him to continue that now? As if sensing his thoughts, Fawkes added, "Your relatives fear the fire they saw last night. Use that. Establish new patterns now." Nodding, Harry got dressed in the usual 2 big hand-me-downs and headed downstairs. He could hear movement in the kitchen, Aunt Petunia clattering pans, the scrape of Uncle Vernon's chair. Harry took a deep breath and pushed open the kitchen door. The conversation stopped instantly. Uncle Vernon's face darkened, but his eyes darted nervously to the space above Harry's shoulder, as if expecting to see the fiery phoenix materialize again. "Good morning," Harry said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. Aunt Petunia's lips pressed into a thin line, but she jerked her head toward the table. "Sit. Eat." Harry blinked in surprise. Usually, he wasn't allowed to sit until everyone else had been served. He slid into a chair, noticing that Dudley was staring at him with undisguised confusion and suspicion. Aunt Petunia placed a plate in front of Harry, eggs, bacon, toast. A normal portion, not the scraps he usually got. Harry's stomach growled audibly. "Thank you," he said quietly. Uncle Vernon grunted from behind his newspaper. "Don't think this changes anything, boy. You'll still do your chores." Harry felt a flicker of anger, and with it, a strange warmth in his chest. The edge of Uncle Vernon's newspaper smoldered suddenly, a tiny flame licking at the corner. Vernon yelped and dropped the paper, stamping out the flame with his coffee mug. His face paled as he looked at Harry. "I didn't mean to," Harry said truthfully, though he couldn't help the small smile that tugged at his lips. "I'm still learning to control it." "Well done," Fawkes's voice sounded in his mind, proud and amused. You stay away from us with that freakishness." Vernon spluttered. Harry took a bite of bacon, savoring the taste. "I told you not to call me a freak anymore." Another tiny flame appeared, this time dancing on the tablecloth near Vernon's hand. It vanished before it could do any damage, but the message was clear. Dudley, who had been watching the exchange with growing horror, scooted his chair further from Harry. "Is that why you got my second bedroom?" he demanded. "Because you can make fire now?" Harry nodded, taking another bite of his breakfast. "My friend thought I should have a proper place to sleep." "Friend? What friend?" Dudley looked around wildly, as if expecting to see someone else in the kitchen. "You don't want to meet him," Harry said simply. Aunt Petunia made a strangled noise and busied herself at the sink, clearly desperate to change the subject. "Your chores," she said, her voice higher than usual. "You'll still keep the garden tidy and clean your own room. But, perhaps Dudley can help with the rest." "What?" Dudley exploded, outraged. "Why should I do his chores?" A small flame appeared on Dudley's plate, singeing his toast. Dudley shrieked and pushed back from the table. "Because," Uncle Vernon said through gritted teeth, "your cousin needs time for other things." Harry could hardly believe what he was hearing. The Dursleys, agreeing to reduce his chores. It was more than he'd ever hoped for. "I'll still help," Harry offered, feeling suddenly magnanimous. "Just not all day, every day." "Generous," Fawkes commented. "But do not surrender the ground you've gained. They must learn to respect you." After breakfast, Harry returned to his new bedroom to find Fawkes waiting on the windowsill. "Did you see that?" Harry asked excitedly. "The flames appeared when I got angry. I didn't even try to do it. That is how it begins. Phoenix fire responds to emotion, particularly to righteous anger and the desire to protect. In time, you will call it forth at will. Will you teach me how? That is why I am here." Fawkes flew to the center of the room. "Sit cross-legged on the floor. We begin with breathing and focus." For the next hour, Fawkes guided Harry through exercises to calm his mind and sense the magic flowing through him. It wasn't easy for a 5-year-old to sit still and concentrate, but whenever Harry's attention wavered, Fawkes would create small dancing flames that captivated him anew. "Fire is life," Fawkes explained. "It warms, illuminates, cleanses, transforms. Phoenix fire is magic in its purest form, creation and destruction in perfect balance." "But I don't want to destroy things," Harry protested. "All power can be used for good or ill. The choice will always be yours. But know this, Phoenix fire can never be used to harm the innocent. It is bound to justice and protection." Harry nodded, relieved. "So I couldn't burn down the Dursleys' house even if I wanted to? If your intent was merely destruction, no. If your intent was to save yourself or another from genuine harm, the fire would answer." They practiced until Harry managed, with intense concentration, to create a tiny flame above his palm. It flickered for only a second before vanishing, but the accomplishment filled him with elation. "I did it," he crowed. Excellent first attempt," Fawkes agreed. "Most adult wizards could never accomplish even that much." A knock at the bedroom door startled them both. Harry tensed. None of the Dursleys ever knocked. Yes, he called cautiously. The door opened to reveal Aunt Petunia. She flinched visibly when she saw Fawkes, her bony hand clutching at her throat. "So it's true," she whispered. "One of them." Harry moved protectively toward Fawkes. "His name is Fawkes. He's my friend." Petunia's lips thinned, but she didn't retreat. "There's someone here to see you." Harry frowned in confusion. "Me? Who would visit me?" "One of your kind," Petunia said stiffly. "A Professor McGonagall." "Ah," Fawkes's voice held recognition. "Minerva has come. Sooner than I expected." "Who's Minerva McGonagall?" Harry asked aloud, forgetting momentarily that Petunia couldn't hear Fawkes's side of the conversation. Petunia stared at him. "How did you know her first name?" "I didn't say it." Harry bit his lip. Fawkes told me." Petunia's gaze darted to the phoenix, and she took a step back. "Just, come downstairs. And keep that bird under control." As she retreated, Fawkes flew to Harry's shoulder. "Minerva McGonagall is deputy headmistress of Hogwarts and a formidable witch. She will be surprised to see me with you." "Is she nice?" Harry asked nervously. "She is stern but fair. And she knew your parents well." That decided it for Harry. He headed downstairs with Fawkes riding regally on his shoulder, the phoenix's weight hardly noticeable. In the living room, a tall, severe-looking woman in an emerald green cloak stood examining the Dursleys' family photos with thinly veiled distaste. She turned as Harry entered, and her stern expression gave way to momentary shock. "Fawkes," she exclaimed. "So it's true." Harry stood uncertainly in the doorway. "Hello. I'm Harry." The woman's features softened almost imperceptibly. "Yes, Mr. Potter. I can see that. You look remarkably like your father, though you have your mother's eyes." Harry's heart leapt. "You knew my parents?" "Indeed I did. I was their teacher at Hogwarts, and later, a colleague in the fight against." She cut herself off, glancing at the Dursleys, who hovered anxiously in the doorway. "Perhaps we might speak privately." Uncle Vernon started to protest, but a single look from Professor McGonagall silenced him. "The boys' room, then," he muttered. "But no. Funny business." McGonagall's nostrils flared. "I assure you, Mr. Dursley, I am perfectly capable of controlling my magic, unlike some I could mention." Her pointed gaze made it clear she wasn't referring to Harry. Once they were settled in Harry's new bedroom, McGonagall conjured a comfortable armchair out of thin air and sat down, her back straight as a ramrod. "Now then, Mr. Potter. It seems you've formed quite an extraordinary connection." Fawkes launched from Harry's shoulder and flew to perch on the edge of McGonagall's chair, greeting her with a soft trill. "Hello to you too, old friend," she said, reaching out tentatively to stroke his feathers. "Though I suspect you're not entirely Dumbledore's anymore, are you?" Harry fidgeted with the hem of his oversized shirt. "Fawkes found me last night. He said we're bonded now." McGonagall's sharp eyes took in Harry's too large clothes and thin frame. "And what led to this most unusual occurrence, if I may ask?" Harry hesitated, unsure how much to reveal about his life with the Dursleys. "You can trust her," Fawkes assured him. "Minerva McGonagall has a fierce heart and a strong sense of justice." "I was upset," Harry said finally. My aunt and uncle locked me in my cupboard without dinner. I snuck out to the park and wished I wasn't alone. And then Fawkes came." McGonagall's expression darkened. "Your cupboard, Mr. Potter." "I sleep in the cupboard under the stairs," Harry explained. "Or I did, until last night. Now I have this room." The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees as McGonagall's fury became palpable. "I see," she said, her Scottish accent becoming more pronounced. And this has been your sleeping arrangement for how long? As long as I can remember. McGonagall stood suddenly, pacing the small room. I told him, she muttered. I told Albus those were the worst sort of muggles, but would he listen? No. The blood wards were too important, he said. She stopped and fixed Harry with a penetrating look. And how else have your relatives treated you, Mr. Potter? Harry shifted uncomfortably. It's better now. Fawkes showed them his fire, and they're scared, so they're being nicer. Showed them his. McGonagall's eyebrows shot up, and she turned to the Phoenix. You revealed yourself to muggles. Fawkes trilled unapologetically. Well, McGonagall said after a moment, that explains their current state of nervousness. Though it raises serious questions about the statute of secrecy. The what? Harry asked. The International Statute of Wizarding Secrecy. The law that keeps our world hidden from muggles, non-magical people, she explained. Though in this case, as your relatives already knew of magic's existence. She waved a hand dismissively. That's not the primary concern at present. She sat down again, her expression softer as she addressed Harry directly. Mr. Potter, Harry. A phoenix bond is extraordinarily rare. For one to form with a child your age is unprecedented. Professor Dumbledore will need to be informed of the full circumstances. Is that bad? Harry asked anxiously. Will Fawkes have to leave? No, young one, Fawkes assured him. Our bond cannot be broken by any wizard, no matter how powerful. McGonagall seemed to guess what Fawkes had communicated. No, I don't believe separation is possible, nor would Dumbledore attempt it. But your situation has become complicated. Because of the Phoenix fire? Harry asked. Fawkes is teaching me to control it. McGonagall's eyebrows nearly disappeared into her hairline. You've already manifested Phoenix fire abilities. After one night? Harry nodded proudly and held out his palm. Concentrating hard, he managed to summon a small flame that danced briefly above his skin before guttering out. The professor stared, momentarily speechless. Remarkable, she finally said. Utterly remarkable. She seemed to come to a decision. This changes matters considerably. I must consult with Professor Dumbledore immediately. In the meantime, Mr. Potter, please continue your lessons with Fawkes, but with caution. Phoenix fire is extremely powerful magic. Yes, Professor, Harry said, liking the way she spoke to him as if he were an actual person, not a nuisance. McGonagall rose and vanished her conjured chair with a flick of her wand. I shall return soon, perhaps with the headmaster. Until then. Her stern gaze softened once more. It's good to see you looking so well, Harry. Your parents would be proud. After she'd gone, Harry turned to Fawkes, bubbling with questions. Who's this Dumbledore person? Will he be angry that you're with me now? What did she mean about blood wards? One question at a time, Fawkes chided gently. Albus Dumbledore is a great wizard who has been my companion for many decades. He will be surprised by our bond, perhaps concerned, but not angry. But you left him for me, Harry persisted. Won't he be sad? I have not abandoned him entirely, Fawkes explained. A phoenix can maintain connections to multiple wizards, though only one primary bond. Mine is now with you, but I will still answer Albus's call in times of genuine need. Harry nodded, relieved. And the blood wards? Magical protection tied to your mother's sacrifice and your aunt's blood relation to her. They shield you from those who would harm you, particularly the dark wizard who killed your parents. Voldemort, Harry said, remembering their conversation from the night before. But McGonagall said he's gone. His body was destroyed the night he tried to kill you. But many, including Albus, believe he is not truly dead. Harry shivered. Is that why I have to stay with the Dursleys? Because of these blood wards? Yes. Though I believe our bond has already begun to change that equation. Before Harry could ask what that meant, there was another knock at the bedroom door. This time, it was Uncle Vernon, his face an interesting shade of puce. "There's another one of your lot here," he said, clearly struggling to control his temper. "An old man with a ridiculous beard. Says he's the headmaster." Fawkes trilled softly, a sound that seemed to contain both welcome and wariness. "Albus has come himself," he told Harry. "Sooner than I expected." Harry smoothed down his unruly hair nervously. "Is that good or bad?" "It simply is. Come, let us greet my old friend." Harry descended the stairs with Fawkes once again perched on his shoulder, feeling both nervous and strangely confident with the phoenix's warmth against his cheek. In the living room stood the most extraordinary man Harry had ever seen. Tall and thin, with silver hair and beard long enough to tuck into his belt, he wore purple robes spangled with silver stars and half-moon spectacles that sat on a crooked nose. His blue eyes twinkled as they fell on Harry, but when they moved to Fawkes, a complex mixture of emotions crossed his face: surprise, wonder, and perhaps a hint of sadness. "Harry Potter," he said in a kind voice. "At last we meet. I am Albus Dumbledore." Harry wasn't sure if he should bow or shake hands or what, so he simply said, "Hello, sir." Fawkes launched from Harry's shoulder and circled the room once before settling on Dumbledore's outstretched arm. "Hello, old friend," Dumbledore murmured. "You've been busy, I see." The phoenix trilled a complex melody that made goosebumps rise on Harry's arms. Something passed between the old wizard and Fawkes, a silent communication that Harry couldn't quite grasp. Dumbledore nodded slowly. "I understand. Though I confess, I did not foresee this development." He turned his attention back to Harry. "It seems, my boy, that you have formed a most extraordinary bond. May I ask how it came about?" Harry explained again about his wish in the park, trying not to focus too much on why he'd been upset. But Dumbledore was perceptive. "And what led you to seek solace in the park so late in the evening?" Harry glanced uneasily at the Dursleys, who were huddled in the doorway, clearly wanting to listen but afraid to come too close. "Perhaps," Dumbledore suggested gently, "we might continue this conversation somewhere more private? With your aunt and uncle's permission, of course." The look he gave the Dursleys wasn't exactly threatening, but Vernon quickly nodded. "Take the boy wherever you like. Just keep that bird under control." Dumbledore's eyes hardened momentarily, but his voice remained pleasant. "Thank you for your hospitality, Mr. Dursley. We shall return shortly." He extended a hand to Harry. "If you would take my hand, Harry. We're going to apparate, travel magically to another location." Harry hesitated only briefly before placing his small hand in Dumbledore's larger one. Fawkes returned to Harry's shoulder. "Hold tight now," Dumbledore warned. Suddenly, Harry felt like he was being squeezed through a very tight rubber tube. The pressure was uncomfortable but not painful. When it ended, they were standing in a sunlit clearing in the middle of a forest. "Where are we?" Harry asked, looking around in wonder. "A special place known only to a few," Dumbledore replied, conjuring a comfortable blanket on the ground for them to sit on. "I thought it fitting for our conversation, as phoenixes have an affinity for natural magic." As if to confirm this, Fawkes immediately flew to a nearby tree and began trilling happily. "He likes it here," Harry observed, sitting cross-legged on the blanket. "Indeed." Dumbledore lowered himself more carefully, his joints clearly not as spry as they once were. "Now, Harry, I'd like you to tell me honestly about your life with your aunt and uncle." There was something in those blue eyes that made Harry want to tell the truth. So he did. He talked about the cupboard, the chores, the hand-me-down clothes, the missed meals, Dudley's bullying, and the constant reminders that he was unwanted. He tried not to sound whiny, after all, it was the only life he'd known, but by the end, Dumbledore's twinkle had disappeared entirely, replaced by a deep sadness. "I owe you an apology, Harry," the old wizard said quietly. It was I who placed you with your relatives after your parents' deaths. I believed the protection of your mother's blood sacrifice, carried in your aunt's veins, outweighed any discomforts you might experience. The blood wards, Harry said. Fawkes explained about them. Dumbledore's eyebrows rose. Did he indeed? Your communication with him must be remarkably clear. He talks in my head, Harry explained. Not with words exactly, but I understand him. A true familiar bond, Dumbledore mused. Even stronger than the one he shared with me. Most fascinating. Are you angry? Harry asked cautiously. That he's with me now? The old wizard smiled gently. No, Harry. Surprised, certainly. Concerned about the implications, yes. But not angry. A phoenix chooses its companions for reasons beyond our understanding. If Fawkes has chosen you, there must be a profound reason. He said I called to him, Harry said. And that we have destinies tied to fire and rebirth. Did he indeed? Dumbledore stroked his long beard thoughtfully. Phoenixes have their own magic, their own wisdom. They see patterns in time and magic that wizards can only guess at. He leaned forward slightly. Now, tell me about this phoenix fire I've heard you're already manifesting. Harry demonstrated, managing this time to create a flame that danced above his palm for nearly 10 seconds before fading. Extraordinary, Dumbledore breathed. Most extraordinary. And after just one day of bonding. Is that good? Harry asked hesitantly. It's unprecedented, my boy. Even wizards who've maintained phoenix familiars for decades rarely gain the ability to manifest phoenix fire directly. Dumbledore's blue eyes studied him intently. Your magical core must be exceptionally strong and uniquely attuned to fire elemental magic. He sat back, seeming to come to a decision. This changes matters considerably. The blood protection at your aunt's home remains important, but your development as a wizard has now taken an unexpected turn. You will need guidance beyond what your relatives can provide. Can I leave the Dursleys? Harry asked, hope flaring in his chest. Not entirely, not yet, Dumbledore said gently. The blood protection requires that you call their house home for at least part of each year. But perhaps we can arrange for supplementary accommodations. Fawkes returned to Harry's shoulder, trilling encouragingly. The old wizard plots and plans, Fawkes observed without rancor. It is his nature. But his heart is good. Fawkes thinks you're planning something, Harry told Dumbledore. The headmaster chuckled. He knows me too well. Yes, Harry, I am indeed formulating a plan. Your situation is unique and requires a unique solution. He stood, brushing off his robes. For now, let us return to Privet Drive. I wish to have a few words with your aunt and uncle about your living arrangements going forward. Harry's heart sank at the thought of returning to the Dursleys, but Fawkes nuzzled his cheek reassuringly. Things have already changed, the Phoenix reminded him. And will continue to change. Back at Privet Drive, Dumbledore requested a private conversation with Petunia and Vernon, leaving Harry in the kitchen with a sulking Dudley, who kept eyeing Fawkes with a mixture of fear and reluctant fascination. Does it hurt? Dudley finally asked, gesturing to where Fawkes perched on the back of Harry's chair. Does what hurt? Harry asked, confused. When it sits on you. It's made of fire, isn't it? Harry laughed. Fawkes isn't made of fire. He's a phoenix. He's warm, but he doesn't burn me. Dudley scooted his chair slightly closer, curiosity momentarily overcoming fear. Can it really burn things? Like Dad's newspaper. I did that, actually, Harry admitted. But I didn't mean to. I'm still learning to control it. You. Dudley's eyes widened. You can make fire too. Harry nodded. Fawkes is teaching me. It's called Phoenix Fire. Can you? Dudley hesitated. Can you show me? A small one. Harry was surprised by the request, but pleased at his cousin's sudden interest. He held out his palm and concentrated. A tiny flame appeared, dancing above his skin. Wicked, Dudley breathed, momentarily forgetting his usual disdain. Can you make it do things? Like burn my school? No, Harry said firmly. Fawkes says Phoenix fire can't be used to hurt innocents or destroy things just to destroy them. It has to be for protection or justice. Dudley looked disappointed. That's boring. It's not boring, Harry objected. It's powerful. But power has to be used right, or it's dangerous. He sounded older than his 5 years as he repeated Fawkes's lessons. The Phoenix trilled approvingly. Their conversation was interrupted as the adults returned to the kitchen. Uncle Vernon looked like he'd swallowed something extremely unpleasant, while Aunt Petunia's face was white and pinched. Dumbledore followed, looking serene. Harry, Dumbledore said, I've been discussing your future with your aunt and uncle. We've come to an arrangement that I believe will satisfy everyone's needs. Harry looked between the adults anxiously. You'll stay here during summers, Dumbledore continued, but for weekends throughout the year, and extended periods during holidays, you'll be receiving special tutoring in magic. Harry's jaw dropped. Really? But I thought I couldn't go to Hogwarts until I'm 11. Not Hogwarts, my boy. Private tutoring, to help you understand and control your unique abilities. Professor McGonagall has kindly volunteered her cottage for the purpose, and several order members, friends of your parents, have expressed interest in assisting. Uncle Vernon made a strangled noise. Just remember what we agreed, Dumbledore. The boy doesn't mention any of this unnaturalness around the neighbors. And that bird stays out of sight when he's here. Of course, Vernon, Dumbledore said pleasantly. Discretion benefits all parties. He turned back to Harry. Your first weekend away will be next Saturday. Professor McGonagall will collect you. In the meantime, I suggest you continue your lessons with Fawkes, but with caution. Phoenix fire is not to be taken lightly. Yes, sir, Harry agreed eagerly. Weekends away from Privet Drive. Tutoring in magic. It was more than he'd ever dreamed possible. As Dumbledore prepared to leave, he paused to address Fawkes. Take good care of him, old friend. I suspect you've seen something in him that the rest of us are only beginning to understand. Fawkes trilled a complex melody that made Dumbledore smile. Indeed, the old wizard murmured. The threads of destiny weave in unexpected patterns. With that cryptic statement, he bid them goodbye and departed, leaving Harry with a fluttering feeling of excitement and anticipation in his chest. That night, as Harry lay in his new bed with Fawkes perched on the headboard, he reflected on how dramatically his life had changed in just 2 days. Fawkes, he whispered in the darkness. Why did you really choose me? The Phoenix's mental voice was gentle. You were meant for great things, Harry Potter. Not because of your scar or the prophecy, but because of your heart. Phoenix fire burns brightest in those with the courage to love fiercely and stand firmly against darkness. But I'm just a kid, Harry protested. For now, Fawkes agreed. But you will grow, and I will be with you. Together, we will write a new chapter in magical history, one of renewal and rebirth from the ashes of the past. Harry smiled in the darkness, comforted by the soft glow of Fawkes's feathers and the warm presence in his mind. For the first time in his life, he felt like he belonged somewhere, like he had a purpose. And as he drifted toward sleep, tiny flames danced harmlessly around his fingertips, painting the shadows with light. Chapter 2, Flames of Discovery. Come on, Harry. You've almost got it. Sirius Black cheered from the edge of the clearing, his dark eyes gleaming with pride. Harry Potter, now 11 years old and worlds away from the frightened boy in the cupboard, stood with his arms outstretched. Sweat beaded on his forehead, but his green eyes burned with determination behind his glasses. Around him, a circle of golden fire rose from the ground, flames dancing like living things. Hold the perimeter. Professor McGonagall called. Focus on maintaining the shape. Harry gritted his teeth. The fire wall wavered, threatening to collapse inward, but he pushed back with his will. 6 years of practice had taught him that Phoenix fire responded to intention more than force. Gentle guidance, not control, Fawkes reminded him through their bond. The magnificent Phoenix soared overhead, his crimson and gold feathers catching the morning light. "I know," Harry muttered. "Trying." He relaxed his shoulders and visualized the circle stabilizing, imagining it as a protective barrier rather than a display of power. The flames steadied, their color deepening to a rich amber. "Yes." Sirius pumped his fist in the air. "That's it, kiddo." Harry held the fire circle for another 30 seconds, then gradually lowered his arms. The flames receded into the ground, leaving a perfect ring of gently scorched earth. "Excellent progress, Mr. Potter," McGonagall said, her usual stern expression softening. "Your control is improving significantly." Harry grinned, wiping sweat from his brow. "Thanks, Professor. It's getting easier to hold the shape without thinking about every flame individually." "That's the key to advanced casting," she agreed, making a note in the leather-bound journal she'd kept of his progress over the years. "Conceptualizing the whole rather than the parts." Sirius bounded over, ruffling Harry's perpetually messy hair. "At this rate, you'll be ready for the flame travel attempt by Christmas." "Don't rush him, Black," McGonagall warned. "Phoenix flame transportation is extraordinarily complex. Even with his natural affinity, Mr. Potter needs more foundational work before attempting it." Harry didn't mind McGonagall's caution. The years of weekend training sessions had taught him that rushing Phoenix magic usually ended with singed eyebrows, or worse. Fawkes landed on Harry's shoulder, a comfortable and familiar weight. Over the years, the Phoenix had grown as much a part of him as his own heartbeat. Their bond had deepened to the point where words were rarely necessary between them, just impressions and emotions flowing back and forth with instinctive ease. "She worries too much," Fawkes commented, his mental voice warm with amusement. "You're ready to begin the preliminary exercises for flame travel." "Fawkes thinks I'm ready to start learning the basics," Harry relayed, scratching under the Phoenix's golden chin. McGonagall pursed her lips. "Of course he does. Phoenixes have little concept of mortal fragility." "Come on, Minerva," Sirius cajoled. "The kid contained a runaway fiendfire last month. If that's not readiness, what is?" "That was an emergency situation," McGonagall countered. "Controlled practice is different from reactive magic." Harry let the familiar argument wash over him, hiding a smile. The dynamic between his stern professor and impulsive godfather had become a constant in his life since Sirius's release from Azkaban 4 years ago. That had been Fawkes's doing, too. The Phoenix had led Harry to evidence of Peter Pettigrew's survival, rat hairs with human magical signature preserved in a time-locked flame. Harry still didn't fully understand how Fawkes had known or obtained the evidence, but it had been enough to prompt an investigation that eventually freed his godfather. "How about breakfast before we continue?" Harry suggested, his stomach growling after the morning's exertion. "I'm starving." "Always thinking with your stomach," Sirius teased. "But I second the motion." "Your pancakes, Minerva." McGonagall sighed but nodded. "I suppose we could all use a break." "Come along, then." They trooped from the training area back to McGonagall's cottage, a cozy stone building nestled in the Scottish Highlands. Over the years, it had become Harry's second home, a place where he could be himself, practice magic, and learn about his parents from people who had actually known them. As McGonagall prepared breakfast in the kitchen, Sirius pulled Harry aside. "Big day tomorrow," he said, grey eyes twinkling. "Excited for your Hogwarts letter?" Harry grinned. "Like I don't already know it's coming. I've only been counting down the last 6 years." "It's still special," Sirius insisted. "The official start of your magical education. Though I'd say you've got a head start on your classmates." He nodded toward Fawkes, who had settled on his perch near the fireplace, a custom stand McGonagall had installed years ago. Wonder what they'll make of him, Harry mused, glancing at his Phoenix companion. Dumbledore says there's never been a student with a Phoenix familiar before. They'll be gobsmacked, Sirius said cheerfully. The boy who lived and the kid with the Phoenix. You'll be a legend before you even sit down for the sorting. Harry groaned. Great. More reasons for people to stare. His fame as the baby who somehow defeated Voldemort had always made him uncomfortable. The few times Dumbledore had taken him to Diagon Alley or other wizarding locations, the pointing and whispers had followed him everywhere. Hey, you'll be fine, Sirius squeezed his shoulder. You've got a good head on your shoulders, and you know who your real friends are. Breakfast. McGonagall called from the kitchen, interrupting their conversation. Over blueberry pancakes, McGonagall's secret recipe, the conversation turned to practical matters. We'll need to visit Diagon Alley for your school supplies, McGonagall said. I suggest next weekend, after you've received your letter. Harry nodded, his mouth full of pancake. He'd been to the wizarding shopping district a few times, always with heavy glamour charms to prevent recognition. This would be his first visit as himself. I'll come too, Sirius declared. Been too long since I've had a proper browse through quality Quidditch supplies. And I'm sure that's your only motivation, McGonagall said dryly. Not at all to do with spoiling your godson with an early birthday present. Sirius winked at Harry. Well, first years aren't allowed their own brooms, but there's nothing in the rules about a top-quality broom servicing kit. Harry grinned. Despite not being allowed to live with Sirius full-time because of the blood protection at Privet Drive, his godfather had made sure the last 4 years were filled with all the affection and indulgence the Dursleys had never provided. After breakfast, they returned to training, this time focusing on Harry's wandless magic. While his Phoenix Fire abilities had developed remarkably, Dumbledore had insisted he also practice conventional magic to prepare for Hogwarts. Remember, Mr. Potter, McGonagall said as Harry attempted to levitate a feather without his practice wand, at school you'll need to use your wand for all classes, even if you find you can perform the magic without it. We don't want to draw undue attention to your unique capabilities. Harry nodded, concentrating on the feather. It wobbled, then rose a few inches. It's harder without the Phoenix Fire, he admitted. Regular magic feels slippery. That's to be expected, McGonagall assured him. Your core has developed with an affinity for fire elemental magic. Other forms will require more concentration. By the afternoon, when it was time for Harry to return to Privet Drive, he had managed several successful wandless levitations and one decent color-changing charm. Same time next week? Sirius asked as they prepared to use McGonagall's Flo connection. Harry nodded. And then Diagon Alley the weekend after. Looking forward to it, kiddo. Sirius pulled him into a quick hug. Try not to set anything important on fire at your aunt and uncle's. Harry laughed. No promises. Dudley's been especially annoying lately. The relationship with the Dursleys had settled into a wary truce over the years. They provided Harry with Dudley's second bedroom and basic necessities, and in return, Harry kept his freakishness to a minimum while there. The weekends away for special schooling were explained to neighbors as a scholarship program for gifted students. Fawkes, who generally made himself invisible around Muggles, landed on Harry's shoulder for the journey home. Remember, constant vigilance with that fire, Potter, McGonagall said, in a fair imitation of Mad-Eye Moody, another of his occasional tutors. Yes, Professor. Harry grabbed a pinch of Flo powder, tossed it into the flames, and called out, Mrs. Figg's house. The spinning sensation of Flo travel never got more pleasant, but Harry had learned to land on his feet most times. He stepped out into the cat-filled living room of Arabella Figg, the squib who lived 2 streets over from Privet Drive. Hello, Harry dear, Mrs. Figg greeted him. Good session today. Great, thanks. Almost mastered the fire perimeter. Harry brushed soot from his clothes. Any problems here? Quiet as can be. Your aunt called once to make sure you'd be back for dinner. Apparently your cousin has a friend staying over, and she wanted to set expectations. Mrs. Fig rolled her eyes. Harry groaned. Probably Piers Polkiss. Great. Never mind. Only a few more weeks and you'll be off to Hogwarts. Then it's just summers to worry about. She handed him a chocolate biscuit. For the road. Thanks, Mrs. Fig. Harry took the biscuit gratefully and headed out, Fawkes invisible on his shoulder but a reassuring presence nonetheless. The walk to Privet Drive gave Harry time to mentally transition from the magical world back to the tedium of Muggle suburbia. As number 4 came into view, he felt the familiar heaviness settle over him, not quite dread anymore, just resignation. Soon enough, we'll be at Hogwarts, Fawkes reminded him. Where both of us belong. Can't come soon enough, Harry murmured. He let himself in the front door, immediately hearing Dudley's boisterous laughter from the living room, accompanied by the unmistakable snickering of Piers Polkiss. Great. I'm back, Harry called out, more as a warning than a greeting. Aunt Petunia appeared from the kitchen, her lips thin. About time. Dinner's at 6. Stay in your room until then. Dudley has company. Fine by me, Harry replied, already heading for the stairs. Once safely in his bedroom, he closed the door and let out a long breath. You can show yourself now. Fawkes shimmered into visibility, flying to perch on Harry's desk. Harry flopped onto his bed. One more night. Then the Hogwarts letter comes, and everything changes. Indeed, Fawkes agreed. Though perhaps not in the ways you imagine. Cryptic as ever, Harry teased, used to the Phoenix's occasionally prophetic comments. He rolled onto his back, staring at the ceiling where he'd painted tiny moving flames, invisible to Muggle eyes, but a comforting reminder of his true nature when he was stuck here. Do you think I'll make friends? He asked suddenly. Real ones, I mean. Not people who just want to know the boy who lived or gawk at my Phoenix. Fawkes trilled softly, the sound both reassuring and melodic. You will find your true companions. Those whose hearts resonate with yours. That's nice and all, but I'd settle for someone who likes Quidditch and doesn't mind that I sometimes accidentally set things on fire when I get excited. You worry too much, young one. Harry sighed and pulled out the book he'd been studying, Elemental Affinities in Modern Magical Theory, by Adalbert Waffling. McGonagall had assigned it to help him understand why his Phoenix Fire abilities enhanced certain types of magic while making others more difficult. He read until dinner, then endured an uncomfortable meal with the Dursleys and Piers, who kept shooting him suspicious glances. Harry had grown considerably since the days when Dudley and his gang could easily bully him. Between his regular magical training and the respect, tinged with fear, that the Dursleys now showed him, Dudley's friends had learned to keep their distance. The evening passed slowly, but Harry didn't mind. Anticipation hummed through him, keeping him awake long after he should have been sleeping. Tomorrow, his Hogwarts letter would arrive, making official what he'd known for years: he was a wizard, and he was going to learn magic at the finest wizarding school in Britain. Sleep, Fawkes urged gently. The morning comes whether you rest or not. I know, Harry murmured, but his mind raced with possibilities. Would he be sorted into Gryffindor like his parents? Would the other students accept him? Would the teachers treat him differently because of his unique abilities? Eventually, his eyelids grew heavy, and he drifted off, dreams full of fire and flying. Harry woke to a tapping sound at his window. He bolted upright, instantly alert. There, silhouetted against the early morning light, was an owl with a letter clutched in its beak. It's here. Harry scrambled out of bed, nearly tripping over his blankets in his haste to reach the window. The owl flew in, dropped the parchment envelope on his desk, and promptly departed without waiting for a reply. Harry stared at the letter, his heart pounding with excitement. The address was written in emerald green ink: Mr. H. Potter, the smallest bedroom 4, Privet Drive, Little Whinging Surrey. With trembling fingers, he broke the Hogwarts seal and pulled out the letter. Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry Headmaster, Albus Dumbledore, Order of Merlin, First Class, Grand Source, CHF, Warlock, Supreme Mugwump, International Confeed, of Wizards, Dear Mr. Potter, we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Please find enclosed a list of all necessary books and equipment. Term begins on September 1st. We await your owl by no later than July 31st. Yours sincerely, Minerva McGonagall. Deputy Headmistress Harry read it 3 times, a grin spreading across his face with each reading. Then he checked the supply list: cauldron, wand, books, robes, and other equipment he would need to purchase in Diagon Alley. Fawkes, who had been sleeping on his perch in the corner, roused himself and flew to Harry's shoulder. The official beginning, the Phoenix commented, his mental voice tinged with satisfaction. McGonagall already sent my acceptance, Harry told him, still grinning. But I didn't want to tell the Dursleys until I had the actual letter. He dressed quickly and thundered down the stairs, letter in hand. The Dursleys were already at breakfast, Uncle Vernon hidden behind his newspaper, Aunt Petunia sipping tea, and Dudley shoveling eggs into his mouth. My Hogwarts letter came, Harry announced without preamble. Uncle Vernon's newspaper lowered slightly, revealing bloodshot eyes. Keep your voice down, boy. The neighbors might hear. I'll be going to Diagon Alley with Professor McGonagall next weekend to get my school supplies, Harry continued, undeterred. And then I'll be gone until Christmas. Aunt Petunia's mouth tightened, but she nodded stiffly. Fine. But remember what we agreed, no mentioning that place to anyone around here. Harry rolled his eyes. Like I'd want to talk about Hogwarts with anyone in Little Whinging. The years had made him bolder around the Dursleys. They still didn't like him, and he certainly didn't like them, but they'd reached an understanding. As long as he kept his magic discreet and spent most of his time elsewhere, they provided the minimum requirements to maintain the blood protection. What's for breakfast? He asked, taking a seat at the table. Aunt Petunia pushed a plate of toast toward him. Help yourself. There's jam in the fridge. It wasn't the warm celebration he might have wished for, but Harry hadn't expected one. His real family, Sirius, McGonagall, even Dumbledore in his distant, enigmatic way, would celebrate this milestone with him. The week passed in a blur of anticipation. Harry spent most of his time in his room, reading ahead in the textbooks McGonagall had already provided and practicing fine control exercises for his Phoenix fire. When Saturday finally arrived, Harry was up and ready before dawn, his excitement making sleep impossible. Fawkes watched with amusement as he changed his shirt 3 times. Your appearance matters little, the Phoenix remarked. It is your magic and heart that define you. Easy for you to say. Your feathers are always perfect, Harry retorted, finally settling on a simple green t-shirt that McGonagall said matched his eyes. At precisely 9 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Harry raced downstairs to find Professor McGonagall on the doorstep, dressed in an immaculate but surprisingly normal-looking dark blue suit. Good morning, Mr. Potter, she greeted him formally, mindful of the Muggle setting. Morning, Professor. Harry beamed. I'm all ready to go. Excellent. She nodded curtly to Aunt Petunia, who had appeared behind Harry. We'll have him back by evening, Mrs. Dursley. See that you do, Petunia replied stiffly. And remember, no oddness in public. McGonagall's nostrils flared slightly, but she maintained her composure. Come along, Potter. Once they were safely away from Privet Drive, McGonagall relaxed visibly. Sirius will meet us at the Leaky Cauldron. Are you prepared for your first public appearance in the wizarding world, Harry? Harry nodded, a nervous flutter in his stomach. As ready as I'll ever be, I guess. Remember what we discussed. You will be recognized, your scar is quite distinctive. People will stare and possibly approach you. Maintain politeness but don't feel obligated to engage beyond your comfort. Yes, Professor. Harry had been coached extensively on handling his celebrity status. And Fawkes? She asked. I will remain hidden until we are safely in the alley, the Phoenix communicated to both of them. Over the years, Fawkes had extended his ability to communicate with Harry to include a few others, McGonagall, Sirius, and Dumbledore among them. They took the Underground to central London, then walked to the shabby-looking pub that served as the gateway to Diagon Alley. Harry had been here before, but always under heavy glamour charms. This would be his first visit as himself. Ready? McGonagall asked as they stood before the entrance. Harry took a deep breath and nodded. The moment they stepped inside, the buzz of conversation died. Heads turned, eyes widened, and suddenly everyone was staring at the thin boy with untidy black hair and the lightning bolt scar. Bless my soul, the old bartender whispered. It's Harry Potter. There was a scraping of chairs, and suddenly Harry found himself surrounded by witches and wizards eager to shake his hand. Mr. Potter, such an honor, always wanted to meet you, can't believe it's really you. Harry shook hands automatically, his practiced smile in place, while inwardly wishing they would all disappear. The press of bodies made him anxious, and he felt a dangerous warmth building in his fingertips, his phoenix fire responding to his distress. Calm, Fawkes urged from his invisible position. They mean no harm. Before things could get out of hand, a firm hand clamped onto Harry's shoulder. All right, that's enough, Sirius Black announced, his voice carrying through the crowd. The kid needs to shop for school, not sign autographs. The crowd parted, whispering now about Sirius Black, once notorious prisoner, now exonerated and reinstated as Lord of the ancient and noble House of Black. Thanks, Harry murmured gratefully as Sirius guided him toward the back of the pub. No problem, kiddo. Fame's a pain in the arse, isn't it? Sirius winked. Now let's get you kicked out for school. They passed through the brick wall into Diagon Alley, where the crowds were thicker but more diverse, making it easier to blend in. Still, Harry noticed the double takes and pointing fingers as people recognized him. First stop, Gringotts, McGonagall declared. You'll need to access your trust vault for school supplies. The imposing white marble building of the Wizarding Bank loomed ahead. Harry had visited once before when Sirius had been explaining wizarding finances, but the goblin-run institution still impressed him. Mr. Potter to access his vault, McGonagall informed the goblin teller. Key, please, the goblin requested, peering down at Harry. McGonagall produced a small golden key from her purse. I've been holding it in trust, as his magical guardian. The goblin examined the key carefully, then nodded. Very well. Griphook will take you down. The cart ride to his vault was as exhilarating as Harry remembered. When they arrived and the door swung open, he tried not to look too overwhelmed by the piles of gold, silver, and bronze coins inside. Take enough for your supplies and a bit extra for spending money throughout the term, Sirius advised. Don't worry about running out, this is just your trust vault. The main Potter vault will be available to you when you come of age. Harry filled his money pouch, still amazed that all this belonged to him. It was a tangible connection to the parents he barely remembered, their legacy to him. Back in the alley, they began the process of purchasing his school supplies. At Madame Malkin's robes for all occasions, Harry was measured for his school uniform while Sirius wandered off to check something. Hogwarts too? Asked a pale, pointed-faced boy who was being fitted nearby. Yes, Harry replied, remembering his coaching about not drawing attention. My father's next door buying my books and mother's up the street looking at wands, the boy drawled. Then I'm going to drag them off to look at racing brooms. I don't see why first years can't have their own. I think I'll bully father into getting me one anyway. Harry disliked him immediately. Have you got your own broom? The boy went on. Yes, Harry answered truthfully. Sirius had bought him a clean sweep 7 for his 9th birthday. Play Quidditch at all? When I can. I do too, father says it's a crime if I'm not picked to play for my house. Know what house you'll be in yet? Harry shrugged. You don't really know until you get there, do you? Well, no one really knows until they get there, but I know I'll be in Slytherin, all our family has been. Imagine being in Hufflepuff. I think I'd leave, wouldn't you? My godfather says Hufflepuffs make the best friends and the worst enemies, Harry replied coolly. I'd be proud to be in any house that would have me. The boy looked taken aback. Who's your family, then? You're not a Muggleborn, are you? Before Harry could answer, Madame Malkin declared, That's you done, my dear, and Harry gladly hopped down from the footstool. See you at Hogwarts, I suppose, the boy called as Harry left. Outside, Harry found Sirius waiting with a mischievous grin and a cage containing a beautiful snowy owl. Happy early birthday, Sirius announced. Every wizard needs a proper post owl, and this beauty was too perfect to pass up. Harry gaped at the magnificent bird. She's beautiful. Thank you, Sirius. The owl hooted softly and regarded Harry with intelligent amber eyes. A worthy companion, Fawkes commented, still invisible but ever present. Wise and loyal. I'll call her Hedwig, Harry decided instantly. It's a name I read in A History of Magic. Perfect, Sirius beamed. Now, on to Ollivander's for the most important purchase of the day, your wand. The wand shop was narrow and shabby, with thousands of narrow boxes piled high. The moment they entered, Harry felt a strange tingling in his fingers, different from his phoenix fire, but similarly magical. Good afternoon, said a soft voice. Mr. Ollivander emerged from the shadows, his pale eyes shining like moons. Ah yes, he said. Yes, yes. I thought I'd be seeing you soon. Harry Potter. It wasn't a question. You have your mother's eyes. It seems only yesterday she was in here herself, buying her first wand. 10¼ inches long, swishy, made of willow. Nice wand for charm work. Ollivander moved closer, and Harry resisted the urge to step back. The wand-maker's silver eyes fixed on Harry's scar. And that's where. I'm sorry to say I sold the wand that did it. 13½ inches. You. Powerful wand, very powerful, and in the wrong hands. Well, if I'd known what that wand was going out into the world to do. Then Ollivander spotted Sirius and brightened. Sirius Black. Rowan and Dragon Heartstring, 12 inches, particularly good for transfiguration. Is it still serving you well? Perfectly, Sirius confirmed, drawing his wand briefly. Though it saw little use for 12 years. Yes, yes, a terrible miscarriage of justice, Ollivander murmured. But we're here for young Mr. Potter today. He pulled out a long tape measure. Which is your wand arm? I'm right-handed, Harry replied. But I work with both. Ollivander's eyebrows rose slightly. Ambidextrous. Interesting, interesting. As the tape measure began taking measurements on its own, Ollivander studied Harry closely. There's something unusual about your magical signature, Mr. Potter. Something I haven't encountered before. Harry exchanged glances with Sirius, who gave a slight nod. I have a phoenix familiar, Harry explained. We've been bonded since I was 5. Ollivander's eyes widened dramatically. A phoenix familiar? At your age? Extraordinary. That will certainly influence your wand compatibility. He began pulling down boxes, muttering to himself. Perhaps a phoenix core, for resonance, but no, too obvious, the wand must complement, not mirror. The first wand, Beechwood and Dragon Heartstring, did nothing when Harry waved it. The second, Maple and Phoenix Feather, caused a nearby vase to shatter. No, no, definitely not, Ollivander snatched it back. Wand after wand failed to produce the right reaction. The pile of tried wands mounted, but Ollivander seemed increasingly excited. Tricky customer. Not to worry, we'll find the perfect match here somewhere. Finally, Ollivander paused, considering Harry with renewed intensity. I wonder, yes, why not, unusual combination, but then, you're an unusual case. He disappeared into the back of the shop and returned with a dusty box. Holly and Phoenix feather, 11 inches, nice and supple. The moment Harry's fingers closed around the wand, he felt a sudden warmth. He raised it above his head and brought it swishing down, a stream of red and gold sparks shot from the end, throwing dancing spots of light onto the walls. "Oh, bravo!" Ollivander cried. "Yes, indeed, oh, very good." But there was something odd in his expression, a mixture of triumph and concern. "Curious, very curious." "Sorry," Harry said, "but what's curious?" Ollivander fixed Harry with his pale stare. "I remember every wand I've ever sold, Mr. Potter. Every single wand. It so happens that the phoenix whose tail feather is in your wand gave another feather, just one other. It is curious that you should be destined for this wand when its brother, why, its brother gave you that scar." Harry's blood ran cold. "Voldemort's wand has the same core as mine." Ollivander nodded solemnly. "The same. The wand chooses the wizard, Mr. Potter. I think we must expect great things from you. After all, he who must not be named did great things, terrible, yes, but great." "This is significant," Fawkes commented in Harry's mind. "But not in the way the wand-maker believes." Before Harry could ask what Fawkes meant, the phoenix continued, "The feather in your wand is not from me, but from another phoenix, one who gave only 2 feathers, decades ago. This connection is part of a larger pattern." 7 galleons, Ollivander was saying, bringing Harry back to the present. As they left the shop, Harry's mind whirled with questions. "Sirius, what does it mean that my wand is connected to Voldemort's?" Sirius's expression was thoughtful. "Magic works in mysterious ways, kiddo. Wand lore is complex. What matters is how you use it, not where it came from." Their final stop was Flourish and Blots for his schoolbooks. As Harry browsed the shelves, he became aware of whispers following him. Word had apparently spread that Harry Potter was shopping for his Hogwarts supplies. Is it really him? The boy who lived? Did you see the scar? Harry tried to ignore the attention, but it was becoming oppressive. The air around him grew warmer as his phoenix fire responded to his discomfort. "Easy," Fawkes cautioned. "Remember your control exercises." Harry took a deep breath, focusing on the books. He selected the required texts and added a couple of additional titles that caught his interest: Modern Magical History, which apparently included a chapter about him, and Great Wizarding Events of the 20th Century. As they approached the counter to pay, the whispers intensified. Harry felt a bead of sweat trickle down his back, not from heat but from the effort of containing his instinctive fire response. Suddenly, a small flame appeared at the corner of the book he was holding. Harry quickly smothered it, but not before Sirius noticed. "I think we're done here," his godfather announced, placing the last book on the counter and paying quickly. They left the bookstore with Harry feeling both embarrassed and frustrated. "Sorry about that," he muttered. "I didn't mean to, don't apologize," Sirius interrupted. "Your control is amazing for someone your age. Most adult wizards couldn't handle half the power you're working with." He glanced around at the crowded street. "But maybe we should call it a day." Harry nodded gratefully. The excitement of shopping had been fun, but the constant staring and whispering was exhausting. "Let's get some ice cream at Fortescue's first," McGonagall suggested, rejoining them after collecting Harry's potion supplies. "I think we've earned a treat." Over massive sundaes, chocolate and raspberry with chopped nuts for Harry, they discussed the upcoming term. "Remember," McGonagall said, "at Hogwarts you'll be expected to use your wand for all standard spell work, regardless of your ability to perform wandlessly. Professor Dumbledore believes it's important you master traditional magical methods alongside your unique abilities." Harry nodded, licking ice cream from his spoon. "I know. Blend in when possible, stand out only when necessary." "Precisely," McGonagall said approvingly. "And regarding Fawkes, I will remain largely unseen during classes, the Phoenix assured them. But I will not hide my presence entirely. The bond between us is too important to conceal. Dumbledore believes the initial shock will pass quickly, McGonagall relayed. Children are remarkably adaptable. After the first few weeks, you'll likely be Harry with the Phoenix rather than a constant source of amazement. I hope so, Harry said fervently. I get enough of that with the boy who lived stuff. Sirius ruffled his hair affectionately. You'll be fine, kiddo. Just be yourself, the real yourself, not what people expect. The right sort will see past the legend to the scrawny kid with terrible hair underneath. Hey! Harry protested, but he was laughing. By the time they returned to Privet Drive, laden with packages and with Hedwig's cage carefully covered, Harry was exhausted but content. His new school supplies were tangible proof that his Hogwarts journey was about to begin. I'll see you on the platform on September 1st, McGonagall promised as she bid him goodbye. Sirius hugged him tightly. 5 more weeks, kiddo. Then the real adventure begins. The remaining weeks at Privet Drive passed in an agonizing crawl. Harry spent most of his time reading his textbooks, practicing with his wand, though he couldn't perform actual spells outside of McGonagall's cottage due to the underage magic restrictions, and continuing his Phoenix Fire exercises. Hedwig proved to be an excellent companion, intelligent and affectionate. She got along surprisingly well with Fawkes, often perching near the Phoenix as if learning from him. Finally, August 31st arrived. Harry packed his trunk meticulously, placing his carefully folded robes, his books, potion supplies, and other equipment inside. His wand he kept in the special holster Sirius had given him as a going-away present. Tomorrow's the day, he told Fawkes and Hedwig that night. Everything changes. Change is the only constant, Fawkes replied philosophically. But yes, tomorrow begins a new chapter. Harry barely slept, too excited and nervous about what lay ahead. When morning finally came, he was up before the Dursleys, double-checking his trunk and pacing his room. Uncle Vernon grudgingly drove him to King's Cross, motivated primarily by the knowledge that Harry would be gone until Christmas. Platform 9 3/4 is between platforms 9 and 10, Harry explained as Vernon unloaded his trunk onto a trolley. I just walked through the barrier. Vernon's face purpled slightly at this blatant mention of magic, but he merely grunted. Fine. Off you go then. See you at Christmas, Harry said, not expecting nor receiving a warm goodbye. He wheeled his trolley toward the barrier between platforms 9 and 10, Hedwig's cage balanced on top. Fawkes, invisible to Muggle eyes, rode on his shoulder. Straight through, the Phoenix encouraged. Don't hesitate. Harry took a deep breath and walked confidently toward the solid-looking barrier. Just before he reached it, a family of redheads crossed his path. Packed with Muggles, of course, the plump woman was saying to her children. Harry recognized fellow wizards immediately. He watched as the oldest boy marched toward the barrier and simply vanished into it. Another followed, then a third. Excuse me, Harry said, approaching the woman. Could you tell me how to get onto the platform? Yes, dear, it's Ron's first time to Hogwarts as well. She pointed to her youngest son, a tall, gangling boy with freckles, big hands and feet, and a long nose. All you have to do is walk straight at the barrier between platforms 9 and 10. Don't stop and don't be scared you'll crash into it, that's very important. Best do it at a bit of a run if you're nervous. Thanks, Harry said gratefully. He lined up his trolley and, following her advice, broke into a run. The barrier looked very solid, but he kept going, trusting the magic, and suddenly he was there, on a platform packed with people, a scarlet steam engine waiting on the track. A sign overhead read, Hogwarts Express, platform 9 3/4. He'd made it. Harry pushed his trolley along the platform, looking for an empty compartment. People stared as he passed, not just at him but at Hedwig's distinctive white feathers. He found a compartment near the end of the train and managed, with some difficulty, to hoist his trunk inside. "Want a hand?" It was one of the red-headed twins he'd seen with the family earlier. "Yes, please," Harry panted. "Oi, Fred. Come here and help." With the twins' help, Harry's trunk was safely stowed in the corner of the compartment. "Thanks," Harry said, pushing sweaty hair out of his eyes. "What's that?" one of the twins suddenly said, pointing at Harry's forehead. "Blimey," said the other twin. "Are you?" "He is," said the first twin. "Aren't you?" he added to Harry. "What?" Harry asked, though he knew what was coming. "Harry Potter," they chorused. "Oh, yeah, I am," Harry confirmed, already tired of the reaction. The twins gawked at him, and Harry felt himself turning red. To his relief, a voice came floating through the train's open door. "Fred? George? Are you there?" "Coming, Mum." With a last look at Harry, the twins hopped off the train. Harry sat down next to the window, partially hidden but with a view of the red-headed family on the platform. The mother was taking out a handkerchief. "Ron, you've got something on your nose." The youngest boy tried to jerk out of the way, but she grabbed him and began rubbing the end of his nose. "Mum, jar off." He wriggled free. "Ah, has Ickle Ronnie got some fink on his nosey?" said one of the twins. "Shut up," Ron muttered. "Where's Percy?" the mother asked. "He's coming now." The oldest boy came striding into sight, already wearing his black Hogwarts robes and with a shiny silver badge on his chest with the letter P on it. "Can't stay long, Mother," he said. "I'm up front, the prefects have got 2 compartments to themselves." "Oh, are you a prefect, Percy?" said one of the twins, with an air of great surprise. "You should have said something, we had no idea." "Hang on, I think I remember him saying something about it," said the other twin. "Once, or twice, a minute, all summer." "Oh, shut up," said Percy the prefect. Harry grinned, liking the twins' sense of humor. Soon after, the final whistle sounded. The remaining red-headed children clambered onto the train, leaning out the window to let their mother kiss them goodbye. Harry felt a pang, wondering what it would be like to have a family see him off. "You are not alone," Fawkes reminded him gently. The train began to move. Houses flashed past the window as Harry watched, excitement building in his chest. He was finally going to Hogwarts. The door of the compartment slid open, and the youngest red-headed boy, Ron, came in. "Anyone sitting there?" he asked, pointing at the seat opposite Harry. "Everywhere else is full." "Go ahead," Harry invited. Ron sat down, glancing at Harry and then quickly looking out of the window, pretending he hadn't. "Hey, Ron." The twins were back. "Listen, we're going down the middle of the train. Lee Jordan's got a giant tarantula down there." "Right," Ron mumbled. "Harry," said the other twin, "did we introduce ourselves?" "Fred and George Weasley. And this is Ron, our brother." "See you later, then." "Bye," said Harry and Ron. The twins slid the compartment door shut behind them. "Are you really Harry Potter?" Ron blurted out. Harry nodded. "Oh, well, I thought it might be one of Fred and George's jokes," Ron said. "And have you really got, you know?" He pointed at Harry's forehead. Harry pulled back his fringe to show the lightning scar. "So that's where you know who?" "Yes," Harry said, "but I can't remember it." "Nothing?" Ron asked eagerly. "Well, I remember a lot of green light, but nothing else." "Wow," Ron said. He sat and stared at Harry for a few moments, then quickly looked away again. "Are all your family wizards?" Harry asked, genuinely curious about Ron's wizarding upbringing. Yes, I think so," Ron replied. "I think Mum's got a second cousin who's an accountant, but we never talk about him." Their conversation flowed easily after that. Ron explained about being the 6th in his family to attend Hogwarts, always having hand-me-downs, and living in the shadow of his older brother's achievements. Harry, in turn, told Ron about growing up with the Dursleys and his weekend training with McGonagall, though he carefully avoided mentioning Fawkes for now. They were interrupted by a smiling, dimpled woman who slid back their door and said, "Anything off the cart, dears?" Harry, who hadn't had any breakfast, leapt to his feet. Ron's ears went pink as he muttered something about sandwiches. Harry, seeing an opportunity to make a friend, bought a generous selection of everything and brought it back to share. "Hungry, are you?" Ron asked, eyeing the pile of treats. "Starving," Harry admitted, taking a bite out of a pumpkin pasty. "And there's plenty to share." Ron's homemade sandwiches lay forgotten as they worked their way through Harry's pastries, cakes, and candies. Harry particularly enjoyed the chocolate frogs with their famous witches and wizards cards. "They're only trading cards, but they're fun to collect," Ron explained. "I'm missing Agrippa." Harry unwrapped his first chocolate frog and picked up the card. It showed a familiar face, Albus Dumbledore. "So this is Dumbledore." Harry examined the picture, watching as the old wizard smiled at him and then walked out of frame. "Don't tell me you've never seen Dumbledore before," Ron said incredulously. "Well, I have, actually," Harry admitted. "He visits sometimes during my training weekends. But I've never seen a wizard photo that moves before." Ron's jaw dropped. "Dumbledore visits you personally?" "Blimey, Harry." Harry shrugged, uncomfortable with Ron's amazement. "It's not a big deal. He's friends with Professor McGonagall, and she's been tutoring me." Before Ron could ask more questions, the compartment door slid open again. A round-faced boy looked in, tearful. "Sorry," he said, "but have you seen a toad at all?" When they shook their heads, he wailed, "I've lost him. He keeps getting away from me." "He'll turn up," Harry assured him. "Yes," the boy said miserably. "Well, if you see him." He left. "Don't know why he's so bothered," Ron said. "If I'd brought a toad I'd lose it as quick as I could. Mind you, I brought Scabbers, so I can't talk." He pulled a fat gray rat out of his pocket. "He's useless, he hardly ever wakes up. Percy got an owl from my dad for being made a prefect, but they couldn't I got Scabbers instead." Harry felt a strange sensation at the sight of the rat, a warning prickle from his phoenix fire. Fawkes, still invisible, stirred restlessly on his shoulder. "Something is wrong with that creature," the phoenix warned. "It is not what it appears to be." Harry frowned, unsure what to make of this warning. Before he could think about it further, the compartment door slid open again. The toadless boy was back, but this time he had a girl with him. She was already wearing her Hogwarts robes. "Has anyone seen a toad?" "Neville's lost one," she said. She had a bossy sort of voice, lots of bushy brown hair, and rather large front teeth. "We've already told him we haven't seen it," Ron said, but the girl wasn't listening. She was looking at the wand in his hand. He'd been about to try a spell on Scabbers. "Oh, are you doing magic?" "Let's see it, then." She sat down. Ron looked taken aback. All right." He cleared his throat. "Sunshine, daisies, buttermellow, turn this stupid, fat rat yellow." He waved his wand, but nothing happened. Scabbers stayed gray and fast asleep. "Are you sure that's a real spell?" the girl asked. "Well, it's not very good, is it? I've tried a few simple spells just for practice and it's all worked for me. Nobody in my family's magic at all. It was ever such a surprise when I got my letter, but I was ever so pleased. Of course, it's the very best school of witchcraft there is, I've heard. I've learned all our course books by heart, of course. I just hope it will be enough. I'm Hermione Granger, by the way. Who are you?" She said all this very fast. Harry looked at Ron and was relieved to see by his stunned expression that he hadn't learned all the course books by heart either. "I'm Ron Weasley," Ron muttered. "Harry Potter," Harry said. "Are you really?" Hermione asked with interest. "I know all about you, of course. I got a few extra books for background reading, and you're in Modern Magical History and The Rise and Fall of the Dark Arts and Great Wizarding Events of the 20th Century. Am I? Harry felt dazed. Goodness, didn't you know? I'd have found out everything I could if it was me, Hermione said. Do either of you know what house you'll be in? I've been asking around, and I hope I'm in Gryffindor. It sounds by far the best. I hear Dumbledore himself was in it, but I suppose Ravenclaw wouldn't be too bad. She continued chattering, barely pausing for breath, until finally saying, you two had better change, you know, I expect we'll be there soon. And she left, taking the toadless boy, Neville, with her. Whatever house I'm in, I hope she's not in it, Ron grumbled, putting his wand away. As they changed into their robes, Harry decided it was time to reveal Fawkes's presence to his new friend. Ron, he said carefully, there's something I should tell you before we arrive. What's up? Ron asked, struggling with his too short robe. Harry took a deep breath. I have a familiar. A phoenix. Ron froze, one arm halfway through a sleeve. A what? A phoenix, Harry repeated. His name is Fawkes. We've been bonded since I was 5. Ron's mouth fell open. You're having me on. No, I'm serious, Harry assured him. He's been invisible during the trip, but he's here now. You may reveal yourself, Harry thought to Fawkes. With a soft shimmer, the magnificent phoenix appeared on Harry's shoulder, his crimson and gold plumage gleaming even in the dim compartment lighting. Ron fell back onto his seat, gaping. Bloody hell. That's really a phoenix. Fawkes trilled a greeting, the musical sound filling the compartment with warmth. This is Fawkes, Harry introduced. Fawkes, this is Ron Weasley. He's beautiful, Ron breathed, or replacing shock. I've never seen a real phoenix before. Dad said they're incredibly rare. They are, Harry confirmed. Fawkes used to be Dumbledore's familiar, but he bonded with me when I was little. Ron shook his head in disbelief. First you survive you-know-who, now you've got a phoenix familiar. Blimey, Harry, you don't do anything by halves, do you? Harry laughed, relieved by Ron's reaction. It's not like I planned any of it. Can I touch him? Ron asked hesitantly. He may, Fawkes confirmed. Go ahead, Harry nodded. He says it's okay. He talks to you. Ron's eyes widened further. In my head, Harry explained. Not with words exactly, but I understand him. Ron cautiously reached out and stroked Fawkes's bright plumage. Wow, he whispered. He's warm. Phoenix fire, Harry said. It's part of their magic. Before Ron could ask more questions, the compartment door slid open yet again. This time it was the pale boy from Madame Malkin's, flanked by 2 large, mean-looking boys. Is it true? The pale boy asked. They're saying all down the train that Harry Potter's in this compartment. So it's you, is it? Yes, Harry replied, watching the other boys warily. This is Crabbe and Goyle, the pale boy said carelessly. And my name's Malfoy, Draco Malfoy. Ron gave a slight cough, which might have been hiding a snicker. Draco Malfoy looked at him. Think my name's funny, do you? No need to ask who you are. My father told me all the Weasleys have red hair, freckles, and more children than they can afford. He turned back to Harry. You'll soon find out some wizarding families are much better than others, Potter. You don't want to go making friends with the wrong sort. I can help you there. He held out his hand to shake Harry's, but Harry didn't take it. I think I can tell the wrong sort for myself, thanks, he said coolly. Malfoy's pale face went slightly pink. I'd be careful if I were you, Potter. Unless you're a bit politer you'll go the same way as your parents. They didn't know what was good for them either. You hang around with riffraff like the Weasleys and it'll rub off on you. Both Harry and Ron stood up. Ron's face was as red as his hair. Say that again, Ron challenged. Oh, you're going to fight us, are you? Malfoy sneered. Harry felt his phoenix fire stirring, responding to his anger. Not worth it, he said to Ron, trying to stay calm. They'll be leaving now. Malfoy opened his mouth for another retort but stopped abruptly as Fawkes spread his magnificent wings and trilled a warning note. The sound was beautiful but held an unmistakable threat. What the? Malfoy stumbled backward. Is that a phoenix? Fawkes fixed his dark, intelligent eyes on Malfoy, who suddenly looked much less confident. Yes, Harry said simply. This is Fawkes. My familiar. The effect was immediate. All three boys paled, even the large Crabbe and Goyle. A phoenix familiar? Malfoy repeated, his voice higher than before. That's impossible. Apparently not, Harry replied, enjoying Malfoy's discomfort. Now, if you don't mind, we'd prefer to be left alone. Malfoy retreated without another word, his minions following closely. Ron burst out laughing the moment the door closed. Did you see their faces? Brilliant. Harry grinned, the tension dissipating. I think Fawkes made quite an impression. Small minds are easily intimidated, Fawkes commented dryly. But that one may prove troublesome in future. A voice echoed through the train, we will be reaching Hogwarts in 5 minutes' time. Please leave your luggage on the train, it will be taken to the school separately. Harry's stomach lurched with nerves, and he saw Ron looking pale under his freckles. They crammed their pockets with the last of the sweets and joined the crowd thronging the corridor. The train slowed and finally stopped. People pushed their way toward the doors and out onto a tiny, dark platform. Harry shivered in the cold night air, but Fawkes's presence on his shoulder provided warmth. A lamp bobbed over the heads of the students, and Harry heard a familiar voice, Furs years. Furs years over here. Hagrid, the enormous gamekeeper who had occasionally visited during Harry's training sessions with McGonagall, beamed down at him. All right there, Harry. Fawkes keepin' you company, I see. Hi, Hagrid. Harry called back, grinning. Hagrid led them down a steep, narrow path to the edge of a great black lake. Perched atop a high mountain on the other side, its windows sparkling in the starry sky, was a vast castle with many turrets and towers. No more and 4 to a boat. Hagrid called, pointing to a fleet of little boats sitting in the water. Harry and Ron were joined in their boat by Hermione and Neville. Fawkes remained on Harry's shoulder, causing excited whispers among the other first years. Everyone in, shouted Hagrid. Right then, forward. The fleet of little boats moved off all at once, gliding across the smooth, glass-like lake. Everyone was silent, staring up at the magnificent castle overhead. As they sailed nearer, Harry felt a strange sensation, like coming home. Fawkes trilled softly, and Harry understood that the Phoenix was feeling the same connection to the ancient magical building. They reached a harbor beneath the castle and clambered up a passageway in the rock, emerging at last onto smooth, damp grass right in the shadow of the castle. They walked up a flight of stone steps and crowded around the huge oak front door. Hagrid raised his gigantic fist and knocked 3 times on the castle door. It swung open immediately. Professor McGonagall stood there, wearing emerald green robes and her usual stern expression. The Furs years, Professor McGonagall, said Hagrid. Thank you, Hagrid. I will take them from here. She pulled the door wide, revealing the massive entrance hall beyond. They followed McGonagall across the flagged stone floor, the sound of hundreds of voices drifting through a doorway to the right. The rest of the school must already be here. McGonagall led them into a small, empty chamber off the hall. They crowded in, standing rather closer together than they would usually have done, peering about nervously. Welcome to Hogwarts, said Professor McGonagall. Her gaze swept over them, pausing briefly on Harry and Fawkes with the slightest hint of a smile. The start-of-term banquet will begin shortly, but before you take your seats in the Great Hall, you will be sorted into your houses. She explained the house system, naming the 4 houses, Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, and Slytherin, and describing the point system. Harry already knew most of this from his training weekends, but he listened politely. The sorting ceremony will take place in a few minutes in front of the rest of the school, McGonagall concluded. I suggest you all smarten yourselves up as much as you can while you are waiting. Her eyes lingered for a moment on Neville's cloak, which was fastened under his left ear, and on Ron's smudged nose. I shall return when we are ready for you, she said. Please wait quietly. She left the chamber, and nervous whispers immediately broke out. How exactly do they sort us into houses? Harry heard someone ask. Some sort of test, I think. Fred said it hurts a lot, but I think he was joking, Ron answered uncertainly. Harry smiled to himself. Sirius had explained the sorting hat years ago, but it seemed to be tradition for first years to worry about the unknown ceremony. It's just a hat, he whispered to Ron. A magical hat that looks into your mind and decides where you belong. Ron looked relieved. Really? Fred was going on about wrestling a troll. Suddenly, several people screamed. About 20 ghosts had just streamed through the back wall, pearly white and slightly transparent. They glided across the room, hardly noticing the first years, apparently arguing about someone named Peeves. A ghost in a ruff and tights noticed the students and stopped mid-argument. New students. About to be sorted, I suppose. A few people nodded mutely. Hope to see you in Hufflepuff, said the ghost. My old house, you know. Move along now, said a sharp voice. Professor McGonagall had returned. The sorting ceremony's about to start. The ghosts floated away through the opposite wall. Now, form a line, McGonagall told the first years, and follow me. Harry got into line behind a boy with sandy hair, with Ron behind him. Fawkes remained regally perched on his shoulder, drawing stares and whispers from the other students. Remember who you are, Fawkes counseled. Not the boy who lived, not the phoenix bonded, but Harry. Just Harry. The advice calmed Harry's nerves as they walked out of the chamber, back across the hall, and through a pair of double doors into the great hall. It was even more magnificent than Harry had imagined. Thousands of candles floated in midair over 4 long tables, where the rest of the students were sitting. At the top of the hall was another long table where the teachers sat. Professor McGonagall led the first years up to this table, so that they came to a halt in a line facing the other students, with the teachers behind them. The hundreds of faces staring at them looked like pale lanterns in the flickering candlelight. Mainly to avoid all the staring eyes, Harry looked upward and saw a velvety black ceiling dotted with stars. It's bewitched to look like the sky outside, he heard Hermione whisper. I read about it in Hogwarts, a history. Harry spotted Dumbledore at the center of the high table, sitting in a large gold chair. The old wizard's eyes twinkled as they met Harry's, and he gave a small nod of acknowledgement. Beside him was an empty seat, presumably McGonagall's, and beside that, a nervous-looking young man in a purple turban. The moment Harry's eyes fell on the turbaned professor, a strange sensation gripped him, a sharp pain in his scar, accompanied by an intense heat in his chest where his phoenix fire gathered. Fawkes's talons tightened slightly on his shoulder. Darkness there, the phoenix warned cryptically. Be vigilant. Before Harry could ask what Fawkes meant, McGonagall placed a 4-legged stool in front of the first years. On top of the stool she put the sorting hat, patched, frayed, and extremely dirty. For a moment, there was complete silence. Then the hat twitched, a rip near the brim opened wide like a mouth, and it began to sing a song about the 4 houses and their qualities. When the hat finished, the whole hall burst into applause. It bowed to each of the 4 tables and then became quite still again. So we've just got to try on the hat. Ron whispered to Harry. I'll kill Fred, he was going on about wrestling a troll. Harry smiled weakly. The hat seemed to be asking rather a lot, he wasn't feeling brave or quick-witted or any of it at the moment. If only the hat had mentioned a house for people who felt a bit queasy. Professor McGonagall stepped forward holding a long roll of parchment. "When I call your name, you will put on the hat and sit on the stool to be sorted," she said. "Abbott, Hannah." A pink-faced girl with blonde pigtails stumbled out of line, put on the hat, which fell right down over her eyes, and sat down. A moment's pause. "Hufflepuff," shouted the hat. The table on the right cheered and clapped as Hannah went to sit down at the Hufflepuff table. "Bones, Susan." "Hufflepuff," shouted the hat again, and Susan scurried off to sit next to Hannah. "Boot, Terry." "Ravenclaw." The table second from the left clapped this time. Several Ravenclaws stood up to shake hands with Terry as he joined them. The sorting continued, with Finnegan, Seamus, becoming the first new Gryffindor, and Granger, Hermione, following him there after nearly a full minute with the hat. Neville Longbottom, the boy who kept losing his toad, also went to Gryffindor, while Draco Malfoy got his wish and was sorted into Slytherin the moment the hat touched his head. There weren't many people left now. "Potter, Harry." As Harry stepped forward, whispers broke out like little hissing fires all over the hall. "Potter, did she say? The Harry Potter? Is that a phoenix on his shoulder?" Harry walked to the stool, intensely aware of Fawkes's reassuring weight. The last thing he saw before the hat dropped over his eyes was the hall full of people craning to get a good look at him. Next second he was looking at the black inside of the hat. Said a small voice in his ear. "Difficult. Very difficult. Plenty of courage, I see. Not a bad mind either. There's talent, oh my goodness, yes, and a thirst to prove yourself. But what's this? A phoenix bond? How extraordinary." Harry gripped the edges of the stool, thinking, not Slytherin, not Slytherin. "Not Slytherin, said the small voice. "Are you sure? You could be great, you know, it's all here in your head, and Slytherin would help you on the way to greatness, no doubt about that. Please, not Slytherin," Harry thought desperately. "Well, if you're sure, and with that phoenix bond, I suppose it makes sense, better be Gryffindor." Harry heard the hat shout the last word to the whole hall. He took off the hat and walked shakily toward the Gryffindor table, where he was greeted by the loudest cheer yet. Percy the prefect got up and shook his hand vigorously, while the Weasley twins yelled, "We got Potter! We got Potter!" As Harry sat down, Fawkes repositioned himself more comfortably on Harry's shoulder, drawing gasps and excited whispers from the Gryffindor table. "Is that really a phoenix?" a third-year girl asked in awe. "Yes," Harry confirmed. "This is Fawkes." Fawkes trilled a greeting, the beautiful sound momentarily silencing the hall. At the high table, Dumbledore beamed, while the other professors looked varying degrees of shocked or intrigued. The turban-wearing professor, however, had an odd expression, almost fearful, as he stared at Fawkes. The pain in Harry's scar flared again, and he quickly looked away. The sorting continued with only a few students left. Ron, looking rather green, stumbled to the stool when his name was called. A second later, the hat shouted, "Gryffindor." Harry clapped loudly with the rest as Ron collapsed into the chair next to him. "Well done, Ron, excellent," said Percy pompously across Harry as Zabini, Blaze, was made a Slytherin. Professor McGonagall rolled up her scroll and took the sorting hat away. Albus Dumbledore got to his feet, beaming at the students, his arms opened wide. "Welcome," he said. "Welcome to a new year at Hogwarts. Before we begin our banquet, I would like to say a few words, nitwit. Blubber. Oddment. Tweak. Thank you." He sat back down. Everybody clapped and cheered. Harry laughed, familiar with the headmaster's eccentric sense of humor. "Is he, a bit mad?" Ron asked uncertainly. "Mad?" Harry grinned. "He's brilliant. Just, unconventional." The dishes in front of them were now piled with food. Harry had never seen so many things he liked to eat on one table: roast beef, roast chicken, pork chops and lamb chops, sausages, bacon and steak, boiled potatoes, roast potatoes, fries, Yorkshire pudding, peas, carrots, gravy, ketchup, and, for some strange reason, peppermint humbugs. Harry piled his plate with a bit of everything and began to eat. It was all delicious. "That does look good," said the ghost in the rough sadly, watching Harry cut up his steak. "Can't you?" "I haven't eaten for nearly 500 years, said the ghost. "I don't need to, of course, but one does miss it. I don't think I've introduced myself. Sir Nicholas de Mimsy Porpington at your service. Resident ghost of Gryffindor Tower." "I know who you are," said Ron suddenly. "My brothers told me about you, you're nearly headless Nick." "I would prefer you to call me Sir Nicholas de Mimsy," the ghost began stiffly, but Seamus Finnegan interrupted. "Nearly headless? How can you be nearly headless?" Sir Nicholas looked extremely miffed. "Like this," he said irritably. He seized his left ear and pulled. His whole head swung off his neck and fell onto his shoulder as if it was on a hinge. Someone had obviously tried to behead him, but not done it properly. Looking pleased at their stunned faces, nearly headless Nick flipped his head back onto his neck and continued, "So, new Gryffindors. I hope you're going to help us win the house championship this year. Gryffindors have never gone so long without winning. Slytherins have got the cup 6 years in a row." The conversation flowed around Harry as he ate. Everyone seemed to have questions about Fawkes, which Harry answered as patiently as he could, though he avoided details about his Phoenix fire abilities. That was something McGonagall had cautioned him to keep private, at least for now. When the desserts appeared, talk turned to families. "I'm half and half," said Seamus. "Me dad's a muggle. Mum didn't tell him she was a witch till after they were married. Bit of a nasty shock for him." The others laughed. "What about you, Neville?" said Ron. "Well, my gran brought me up and she's a witch," said Neville, "but the family thought I was all muggle for ages. My great-uncle Algy kept trying to catch me off my guard and force some magic out of me. He pushed me off the end of Blackpool Pier once, I nearly drowned, but nothing happened until I was 8. Great-uncle Algy came round for dinner, and he was hanging me out of an upstairs window by the ankles when my great-auntie Enid offered him a meringue and he accidentally let go. But I bounced, all the way down the garden and into the road. They were all really pleased, Gran was crying, she was so happy." Harry stared, appalled at what sounded like child abuse being described so casually. Fawkes made a soft sound of disapproval. At last, the desserts disappeared, and Dumbledore got to his feet again. The hall fell silent. "Just a few more words now that we are all fed and watered. I have a few start-of-term notices to give you." He went through the usual announcements, the forest being forbidden, no magic in the corridors, Quidditch trials, and then added, "And finally, I must tell you that this year, the third-floor corridor on the right-hand side is out of bounds to everyone who does not wish to die a very painful death." Harry's eyes narrowed at that odd warning. A few people laughed, but most, like him, seemed to take it seriously. "He's not serious," Ron muttered to Percy. "Must be," said Percy, frowning. "It's odd, because he usually gives us a reason why we're not allowed to go somewhere. The forest's full of dangerous beasts, everyone knows that." The school then sang the Hogwarts song, each to their own tune, before being dismissed to their dormitories. Percy led the first-year Gryffindors through the chattering crowds, out of the Great Hall, and up the marble staircase. Harry's legs were heavy as they climbed more staircases, too tired to be surprised when the people in the portraits whispered and pointed as they passed, or when Percy led them through doorways hidden behind sliding panels and hanging tapestries. They stopped suddenly in front of a portrait of a very fat woman in a pink silk dress. "Password," she said. "Caput Draconis," said Percy, and the portrait swung forward to reveal a round hole in the wall. They all scrambled through it and found themselves in the Gryffindor common room, a cozy, round room full of squashy armchairs. Percy directed the girls through one door to their dormitory and the boys through another. At the top of a spiral staircase, they found their beds at last, 5 four-posters hung with deep red, velvet curtains. Their trunks had already been brought up. Too tired to talk much, they pulled on their pajamas and fell into bed. Fawkes settled on a perch that had thoughtfully been placed near Harry's bed. Clearly Dumbledore had anticipated the Phoenix's presence. "Amazing food, isn't it?" Ron muttered to Harry through the hangings. "Hey, Harry, is your Phoenix going to stay with you all the time?" "Most of the time," Harry replied sleepily. "He comes and goes as he pleases, though." "Wicked," Ron mumbled. "Good night, Harry." "Night, Ron." Harry smiled into the darkness. He was at Hogwarts at last, sorted into Gryffindor, with a friendly face in the bed next to his and Fawkes watching over him. For the first time in his life, he felt completely at home. "Rest well, young one," Fawkes's gentle voice filled his mind. "Tomorrow, your true education begins." Classes started the next day, and Harry quickly discovered that there was much more to magic than the specialized training he'd received from McGonagall and Sirius. There were 142 staircases at Hogwarts, doors that weren't really doors, walls that pretended to be doors, and the people in the portraits kept visiting each other. The classes themselves were fascinating. Every Wednesday at midnight, they studied the night skies through telescopes, learning the names of different stars and the movements of planets. 3 times a week they went out to the greenhouses for herbology with Professor Sprout. Easily the most boring class was History of Magic, taught by a ghost named Professor Binns. Charms, taught by tiny Professor Flitwick, was more engaging, especially when Flitwick toppled off his stack of books with a squeak when he reached Harry's name during roll call. Transfiguration with Professor McGonagall was difficult but rewarding. She gave them a talking to the moment they sat down in her first class. "Transfiguration is some of the most complex and dangerous magic you will learn at Hogwarts," she said. "Anyone messing around in my class will leave and not come back. You have been warned." She then changed her desk into a pig and back again. They were all very impressed but soon realized they weren't going to be changing furniture into animals for a long time. After taking a lot of notes, they were each given a match and started trying to turn it into a needle. Thanks to his previous training, Harry managed the transformation on his 3rd attempt, earning a rare smile from McGonagall. By the end of the lesson, Hermione Granger was the only other student who had made any difference to her match. Defense against the dark arts, which many students had been looking forward to, turned out to be something of a joke. Professor Quirrell's classroom smelled strongly of garlic, and his turban, he told them, had been given to him by an African prince as a thank you for getting rid of a troublesome zombie. Harry found himself unable to concentrate in Quirrell's presence. Every time the professor turned his back, Harry's scar would prickle uncomfortably, and his phoenix fire would stir restlessly in his chest. Fawkes, who attended most classes perched quietly on a window-sill or bookshelf, refused to enter the defense classroom at all. "There is wrong magic there," was all the phoenix would say. "Darkness clings to him." Harry related these concerns to Ron as they made their way to their first potions lesson on Friday morning. "Quirrell's definitely odd," Ron agreed. "But dark magic? I dunno, Harry. He seems too pathetic." "Maybe," Harry conceded. "But Fawkes has never been wrong about this sort of thing before." "Snape's the one everyone says is into the dark arts," Ron added. "Fred and George reckon he'd love to teach defense instead of potions." Harry had already heard that Snape, the potions master and head of Slytherin House, favored his own students and was particularly harsh on Gryffindors. He was about to find out if the rumors were true. Potions lessons took place in the dungeons. It was colder here than up in the main castle, and would have been creepy enough without the pickled animals floating in glass jars around the walls. Snape started the class by taking the roll call, pausing at Harry's name. "Ah, yes," he said softly, "Harry Potter. Our new celebrity." Draco Malfoy and his friends Crabbe and Goyle sniggered behind their hands. Snape finished calling the names and looked up at the class. "You are here to learn the subtle science and exact art of potion making," he began. His voice was barely more than a whisper, but they caught every word. "As there is little foolish wand waving here, many of you will hardly believe this is magic. I don't expect you will really understand the beauty of the softly simmering cauldron with its shimmering fumes, the delicate power of liquids that creep through human veins, bewitching the mind, and snaring the senses. I can teach you how to bottle fame, brew glory, even stopper death, if you aren't as big a bunch of dunderheads as I usually have to teach. More silence followed this little speech. Hermione was on the edge of her seat, looking desperate to prove she wasn't a dunderhead. Potter, Snape said suddenly. What would I get if I added powdered root of asphodel to an infusion of wormwood? Hermione's hand shot into the air, but Harry, to his own surprise, knew the answer from his advanced reading. The draught of living death, sir. It's a powerful sleeping potion. Snape's eyes narrowed. Where would you look if I told you to find me a bezoar? Again, Hermione's hand shot up, but Harry answered, in the stomach of a goat. It's a stone that can save you from most poisons. What is the difference, Potter, between monkshood and wolfsbane? They're the same plant, sir. Also known as aconite. Snape's lip curled. Well, well. Fame clearly isn't everything, but it seems you at least bothered to open a book before coming here. For your information, the draught of living death is an advanced potion covered in 6th year. 1 point to Gryffindor for basic preparation. The grudging point award surprised everyone, including Harry. Though Snape's tone remained cold, there was a calculating look in his eyes now. Things didn't improve for the other Gryffindors as the potions lesson continued. Snape put them all into pairs and set them to mixing a simple potion to cure boils. He swept around the room, criticizing almost everyone except Malfoy, whom he seemed to like. Harry worked carefully with Ron, remembering Sirius's warning that Snape had been rivals with his father at school and might hold a grudge. By focusing intently on following the instructions, they produced a passable potion, though Snape found fault with the shade of pink, too salmon, not coral. Disaster struck when Neville somehow managed to melt Seamus's cauldron into a twisted blob, and their potion seeped across the stone floor, burning holes in people's shoes. Within seconds, the whole class was standing on their stools while Neville, who had been drenched in the potion when the cauldron collapsed, moaned in pain as angry red boils sprang up all over his arms and legs. "Idiot boy," snarled Snape, clearing the spilled potion away with one wave of his wand. "I suppose you added the porcupine quills before taking the cauldron off the fire?" Neville whimpered as boils started to pop up all over his nose. "Take him up to the hospital wing," Snape spat at Seamus. Then he rounded on Harry and Ron, who had been working next to Neville. "You, Potter, why didn't you tell him not to add the quills? Thought he'd make you look good if he got it wrong, did you? That's another point from Gryffindor." This was so unfair that Harry opened his mouth to argue, but Ron kicked him behind their cauldron and muttered, "Don't push it." As they climbed the steps out of the dungeon an hour later, Harry's mind was racing. Snape had been unpleasant, certainly, but different from what he'd expected based on the twins' horror stories. The professor seemed to have a particular interest in him, though Harry couldn't tell if it was positive or negative. "Cheer up," said Ron, "Snape's always taking points off Fred and George. At least he gave you 1 point first. Can I come and meet Hagrid with you?" At 3:30 that afternoon, they left the castle and made their way across the grounds to Hagrid's small wooden house on the edge of the Forbidden Forest. When Harry knocked, they heard a frantic scrabbling from inside and several booming barks. Then Hagrid's voice rang out, "Back, Fawkes, back." Hagrid's big, hairy face appeared in the crack as he pulled the door open. "Hang on," he said. "Back, Fawkes." He let them in, struggling to keep a hold on the collar of an enormous black boarhound. Fawkes, who had been invisible during their walk across the grounds, materialized on Harry's shoulder as they entered. "Make yourselves at home," said Hagrid, letting go of Fawkes, who bounded straight at Ron and started licking his ears. Like Hagrid, Fawkes was clearly not as fierce as he looked. "This is Ron," Harry introduced, as Hagrid poured boiling water into a large teapot and put rock cakes onto a plate. "Another Weasley, said Hagrid, glancing at Ron's freckles. I spent half me life chasin' your twin brothers away from the forest. The rock cakes were shapeless lumps with raisins that almost broke their teeth, but Harry and Ron pretended to be enjoying them as they told Hagrid all about their first lessons. "How's Fawkes adjusting to school life?" Hagrid asked, beaming at the Phoenix. "Dumbledore told me he's never seen a familiar bond like yours before, Harry." "He's doing great," Harry replied as Fawkes trilled happily. "Most of the professors let him stay during classes. Except Quirrell, Fawkes won't go near his classroom." Hagrid frowned. "That's odd. Phoenixes are excellent judges of character." "My scar hurts around him too," Harry admitted. "Every time he turns his back to me." "That's very strange," Hagrid said, looking troubled. "Have you told Dumbledore?" Harry shook his head. "I wasn't sure if it was important enough to bother him with." "Anything unusual should be reported," Hagrid advised. "Especially anything to do with that scar." They moved on to discussing Snape's odd behavior in potions. Hagrid, like Ron, assured Harry that Snape rarely liked any students, especially Gryffindors. Harry spotted a piece of paper lying on the table under the tea cozy. It was a cutting from the Daily Prophet. Gringotts break-in. Latest investigations continue into the break-in at Gringotts on July 31st, widely believed to be the work of dark wizards or witches unknown. Gringotts goblins insist that nothing was taken. The vault in question, number 713, had in fact been emptied earlier that same day. "Hagrid," said Harry, "that Gringotts break-in happened on my birthday. It might have been happening while we were there." Hagrid definitely didn't meet Harry's eyes. He grunted and offered him another rock cake. Harry read the story again. The vault in question, number 713, had been emptied earlier that same day. Hagrid had emptied vault 713, if you could call it emptying, taking out that small, grubby package. Had that been what the thieves were looking for? "Something valuable," Fawkes commented. "Something powerful." "What do you think was in that package, Hagrid?" Harry asked casually. "Can't tell ya that," said Hagrid mysteriously. "Top secret. Hogwarts business. Dumbledore's trusted me." Harry exchanged glances with Ron, his curiosity piqued. Fawkes shifted on his shoulder, and Harry sensed the Phoenix's interest as well. As Harry and Ron walked back to the castle for dinner, their pockets weighed down with rock cakes they'd been too polite to refuse. Harry's mind was buzzing with questions. What had Hagrid taken from Vault 713? Where was it now? And did Hagrid know something about Quirrell that he wasn't telling? "The mysteries are connected," Fawkes observed. "The turban, the pain, the package. Threads of the same tapestry." Harry nodded thoughtfully. His first week at Hogwarts had been amazing, but it was clear that beneath the everyday magic of classes and new friendships, something more serious was unfolding. With Fawkes's warmth on his shoulder and Ron chatting animatedly beside him, Harry decided that whatever mysteries Hogwarts held, he was no longer facing them alone. Chapter 3, Rising from the Ashes. Again, Harry. Focus on the transition point. Sirius Black's voice cut through the sizzling air as Harry Potter, now 12 years old, stood in the center of a charred circle. Sweat poured down his face, his green eyes narrowed in concentration behind his glasses. His right hand extended forward, palm up, supporting a basketball-sized sphere of golden fire. His left hand pointed behind him, where another identical sphere hovered. "Now link them," Sirius commanded. Harry gritted his teeth. Linking two separate phoenix fires was the key to flame travel, creating a doorway of sorts between locations. He'd been practicing all summer, and still couldn't maintain the connection for more than a few seconds. Intention, not force, Fawkes reminded him through their bond. The magnificent phoenix circled overhead, his crimson and gold plumage catching the morning sun. "Feel the unity of the flames." "I'm trying," Harry muttered. He closed his eyes, visualizing the two fires as extensions of the same source, his core, where the phoenix magic lived. Slowly, a thin stream of golden particles began to flow between the spheres, connecting them like a thread of light. That's it. Sirius shouted excitedly. Now step through. Harry took a deep breath and moved toward the first sphere. The connection wobbled dangerously. One more step and, the link shattered. Both fire spheres collapsed with a whoosh of displaced air, sending up clouds of ash from the scorched ground. Damn it! Harry kicked at the dirt, frustration boiling over. Sirius jogged over, clapping him on the shoulder. Hey, that was your longest connection yet. 10 seconds at least. But I still can't travel through it, Harry pointed out, accepting the water bottle Sirius conjured. I've been at this for weeks. Most wizards couldn't create even one of those fire spheres, let alone link them, Sirius reminded him. You're making incredible progress. Harry drained the water bottle, letting the cool liquid soothe his parched throat. Living with Sirius for the past month had been everything he'd dreamed of, magical training without restrictions, no Dursleys, and the closest thing to a real family he'd ever known. After his first year at Hogwarts, which had culminated in his confrontation with Quirrell and the shade of Voldemort in the chamber housing the Philosopher's Stone, Dumbledore had finally relented on the blood protection requirement. With Voldemort proven to be a lingering threat, Harry's accelerated training took priority over the marginal protection of Privet Drive. He would still need to visit the Dursleys briefly each summer, but could live primarily with his godfather. Fawkes landed on a nearby fence post, preening his magnificent feathers. The magic is correct, but your confidence wavers at the critical moment. Fawkes thinks I'm getting in my own way, Harry translated for Sirius. Classic problem, Sirius nodded. You're overthinking it. When I first learned to transform into Padfoot, I kept getting stuck halfway because I was too focused on the process instead of the outcome. Harry sighed, pushing his sweaty hair back from his forehead. The lightning bolt scar had faded somewhat over the past year, no longer an angry red but a softer, silvery white. Easier said than done. Let's take a break, Sirius suggested. We've been at this since dawn, and I'm starving. They headed back toward the cottage, a cozy, somewhat ramshackle building that Sirius had inherited from his uncle Alfred. After his release from Azkaban, he'd renovated it into a comfortable home, complete with a dedicated training area in the back garden. As they approached, Harry spotted a regal eagle owl perched on the gatepost, a letter tied to its leg. Ministry seal, Sirius noted, his expression darkening. Wonder what they want now. Relations between Sirius and the Ministry remained strained, despite his official exoneration. Too many current officials had been involved in his wrongful imprisonment to be comfortable with his freedom, or his custody of the boy who lived. Harry untied the letter, noticing it was addressed to him, not Sirius. The eagle owl immediately took off, not waiting for a reply. That's never a good sign, Sirius muttered. Harry broke the official purple seal and unfolded the parchment. Dear Mr. Potter, it has come to the attention of the Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures that you claim ownership of a Class XXXX magical beast, specifically a phoenix, without appropriate licensing or ministry supervision. Furthermore, reports indicate you have been engaging in unauthorized experimentation with phoenix-derived magic, potentially violating the reasonable restriction of underage sorcery, the Statute of Secrecy, and the Magical Beast Protection Act of 1782. A ministry representative will visit your residence on August 15 at 10 a.m. to assess the situation and determine what restrictions or accommodations may be necessary going forward. Yours sincerely, Dolores Jane Umbridge, Senior Undersecretary to the Ministry of Magic. Harry's hands trembled with anger as he finished reading. They're calling Fawkes a beast that I own. And they want to put restrictions on our bond. Sirius snatched the letter, his face growing thunderous as he read. Bloody bureaucrats. This is Fudge's doing. He's been looking for ways to gain leverage over you since you moved in with me. Fawkes trilled softly from overhead, landing on Harry's shoulder. They understand nothing of Phoenix bonds. Their rules are meaningless to beings such as I. Fawkes says he's not worried, Harry relayed, though his own anger hadn't subsided. But I am. What if they try to separate us? Sirius barked a humorless laugh. I'd like to see them try. A phoenix goes where it pleases, even the Department for the Regulation of Magical Creatures knows that. Then what do they want? Harry demanded. Control, Sirius said grimly. Influence. You're not just Harry Potter anymore, you're the boy who lived with unique magical abilities that nobody fully understands. That makes certain people nervous. Harry scowled. I haven't done anything wrong. Of course you haven't, Sirius soothed, guiding him inside. We'll handle this. I'm calling Dumbledore. Over breakfast, Sirius contacted the headmaster through the flue. Dumbledore's serene face appeared in the green flames, listening carefully to their concerns. Ah, I suspected something like this might occur, Dumbledore said when Sirius finished explaining. Cornelius has been increasingly anxious about Harry's developing abilities. The reports from Hogwarts last year, particularly your effective defense against Professor Quirrell, have raised questions in certain quarters. They can't regulate a Phoenix bond, Harry insisted. It's not like I applied for a license. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled, though his expression remained serious. Quite right, Harry. Phoenix bonds exist outside Ministry jurisdiction, traditionally speaking. However, there is little precedent for your particular situation. Meaning what, exactly? Sirius asked. Meaning that while they cannot sever the bond, they may attempt to place restrictions on how and where Harry utilizes abilities derived from it. Dumbledore stroked his long beard thoughtfully. I believe I should be present for this meeting. I was hoping you'd say that, Sirius said, relief evident in his voice. And perhaps one other ally, Dumbledore added. Someone with expertise in magical law. Harry spent the next week continuing his training, now with an additional edge of defiance. If the Ministry wanted to restrict his abilities, they'd at least see exactly what they were dealing with. On August 15, the cottage was ready for visitors. Dumbledore arrived early, bringing with him a severe-looking witch with a monocle whom he introduced as Amelia Bones, head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. Madame Bones is known for her fairness, Dumbledore explained. And as Susan Bones's aunt, she has a particular interest in the education and rights of young wizards. Madame Bones shook Harry's hand firmly. Mr. Potter. I've heard remarkable things about you from my niece. Susan's great, Harry said honestly, remembering the friendly Hufflepuff from their shared herbology classes. She helped me with my bouncing bulbs when mine kept trying to strangle me. A smile flickered across Madame Bones's stern face. She mentioned that in her letters. Precisely at 10 o'clock, the fireplace flashed green, and a short, squat woman stepped out, followed by two official-looking wizards. Harry's immediate impression was of a large, pale toad dressed in an overly fussy pink cardigan. Her bulging eyes scanned the room with poorly disguised distaste. Dolores, Dumbledore greeted pleasantly. How kind of you to visit us personally. Dumbledore, the woman replied, her voice high-pitched and girlish in a way that set Harry's teeth on edge. I wasn't aware you'd be joining us. This is a Ministry matter. Young Harry is my student, Dumbledore said mildly, and the bond in question involves a phoenix who has been my companion for many decades. I believe that makes it very much my concern. Umbridge's eyes narrowed slightly before she turned her attention to Harry. Her smile widened but didn't reach her eyes. Harry Potter, she simpered. Such a pleasure to meet you at last. I'm Dolores Umbridge, Senior Undersecretary to Minister Fudge. I know who you are, Harry replied coolly. Your letter made it clear why you're here. Fawkes chose that moment to appear, materializing in a small burst of flame on Harry's shoulder. Umbridge flinched visibly, while her two companions, who Harry guessed were from the Beast Division, muttered to each other with professional interest. Ah, and this must be the phoenix in question, Umbridge said, recovering quickly. A magnificent creature, to be sure. She reeks of falsehood, Fawkes communicated to Harry. Her heart is small and withered. Harry bit back a smile at the phoenix's assessment. This is Fawkes. He's been my companion since I was 5 years old. Yes, we've reviewed the file, Umbridge said dismissively. Most irregular. Phoenixes rarely bond with wizards at all, let alone children. Which brings us to our concerns. She gestured to her companions, who produced official-looking folders and quills. Ministry records contain no precedent for a juvenile wizard maintaining a Class XXXX familiar, she continued. The potential for accidents, misuse, or damage is simply too great without proper oversight. I wasn't aware phoenixes were classified as Class XXXX beasts, Madame Bones interjected. Given their intelligence and benevolent nature, they're generally considered beyond classification. One of the Beast Division wizards cleared his throat nervously. Technically speaking, their classification is ambiguous, Madame Bones. The fire generation capabilities place them in a potentially dangerous category. Exactly, Umbridge smiled sweetly. And our reports indicate young Mr. Potter has been experimenting with Phoenix fire magic, highly volatile and potentially catastrophic in untrained hands. My hands aren't untrained, Harry objected. I've been working with Fawkes' fire since I was 5. Professor McGonagall, Sirius, and Professor Dumbledore have all supervised my development. Yes, but without ministry oversight or standardized safety protocols, Umbridge countered. The law is quite clear on experimental magic involving minors. Sirius stepped forward, his patience visibly fraying. What exactly are you proposing, Undersecretary? You can't separate Harry from Fawkes, a Phoenix bond doesn't work that way. Of course not, Umbridge tittered, as if the very idea was ridiculous. We simply wish to implement appropriate monitoring and restrictions to ensure public safety. She produced a thick roll of parchment from her handbag. We've prepared a reasonable accommodation plan. Mr. Potter may maintain his relationship with the Phoenix, but all fire magic must be performed under ministry supervision, with quarterly assessments of his control and ability. And if I refuse? Harry asked bluntly. Umbridge's smile tightened. Then regrettably, the Phoenix would be classified as an uncontrolled magical beast, requiring relocation to a ministry sanctuary. The temperature in the room spiked suddenly as Harry's anger flared. Small flames danced momentarily around his fingertips before he got them under control. You can't take Fawkes anywhere he doesn't want to go, he stated flatly. Perhaps a demonstration would be illuminating, Dumbledore suggested, his calm voice cutting through the tension. Harry, would you show our guests what a trained Phoenix bonded can accomplish? Harry glanced at Dumbledore, who nodded encouragingly. Taking a deep breath, he stepped into the center of the living room. Fawkes launched from his shoulder, circling overhead as Harry centered himself. Starting with the basics, he conjured a small flame above his palm, then shaped it into a miniature phoenix that flew around the room. The Beast Division wizards watched with undisguised fascination, while Umbridge's expression remained coldly calculating. Harry escalated gradually, demonstrating the precision of his control by lighting and extinguishing the candles around the room individually. Then he created a ring of fire around himself, his signature move, keeping the flames at precisely the height of his waist, neither growing nor diminishing. For his finale, he tried something he'd only recently mastered. With Fawkes' trilling encouragement, he extended his arms and created twin spheres of golden fire. Focusing on the connection, he managed to link them with a stream of fiery particles, holding the bridge stable for nearly 20 seconds. When he finally released the magic, letting the flames dissipate harmlessly, the room was silent. Even Umbridge seemed momentarily speechless. As you can see, Dumbledore said pleasantly, Harry's control is exemplary. Far beyond what many adult wizards could manage with conventional fire spells. Madame Bones adjusted her monocle, clearly impressed. Remarkable precision, Mr. Potter. Certainly doesn't appear to pose any public safety risk. Umbridge's face had taken on a pinched quality. Impressive party tricks, to be sure. But the law remains the law. Without proper oversight, perhaps I can offer a compromise, Dumbledore interrupted smoothly. As headmaster of Hogwarts, I am legally empowered to oversee experimental magic conducted on school grounds as part of educational development. What if I were to personally supervise Harry's continued training and provide quarterly reports to the ministry? Umbridge hesitated, clearly searching for a counterargument. Madame Bones seized the opening. That seems eminently reasonable, Dolores. Albus is a recognized authority on Phoenix lore, and Hogwarts has the necessary safety measures in place. Furthermore, Dumbledore continued, Harry would benefit from specialized instruction to fully develop his unique magical signature. I'm sure Minister Fudge would appreciate being associated with such a progressive educational initiative. Harry marveled at Dumbledore's political maneuvering. He'd just turned the situation from a restriction to an opportunity, and given Umbridge a way to save face with her boss. After several more minutes of negotiation, Umbridge reluctantly agreed to Dumbledore's proposal, though she insisted on adding a clause that a ministry observer would periodically assess Harry's progress in person. I shall volunteer for that duty myself, she added with another sickly sweet smile. Given the sensitive nature of Mr. Potter's abilities. As the ministry officials prepared to leave, Umbridge paused before Harry. We'll be seeing each other at Hogwarts then, Mr. Potter. I do so look forward to observing your development. The threat behind her sugary tone was unmistakable. After they'd gone, Harry collapsed onto the sofa. That was exhausting. But successful, Dumbledore noted, accepting a glass of fire whiskey from Sirius. You handled yourself admirably, Harry. She'll be looking for any excuse to classify me as dangerous, Harry pointed out. Sirius snorted. Of course she will. Umbridge has been Fudge's attack dog for years. She's threatened by anything she can't control. Madame Bones sighed. Unfortunately, Sirius is right. Dolores has considerable influence with the minister, and she's notoriously persistent. Then we'll just have to be more persistent, Harry said, determination hardening in his chest. I won't let her interfere with my bond with Fawkes. Fawkes trilled approvingly from his perch by the window. We have faced worse threats than pink-clad toads. The remaining weeks of summer passed in a blur of training and preparation for Harry's second year. His Hogwarts letter arrived, along with the book list for the coming term. Harry noted with amusement that the defense against the dark arts texts were all written by someone named Gilderoy Lockhart. Bit full of himself, isn't he? Harry commented to Sirius as they shopped in Flourish and Blots. The store was packed with witches hoping to meet Lockhart, who was doing a book signing that day. Complete fraud, if you ask me, Sirius muttered. James and I met him once after we left Hogwarts, all flash, no substance. Their shopping expedition was interrupted when they encountered the Weasleys and Grangers, leading to a joyful reunion with Ron and Hermione. The happy meeting turned sour, however, when Lucius Malfoy appeared with his son Draco, leading to a physical altercation with Arthur Weasley that only ended when Hagrid separated them. Harry noticed something odd during the commotion, Lucius Malfoy slipping a small, black book into Ginny Weasley's cauldron. He mentioned it to Sirius later, who frowned deeply. Lucius was a Death Eater, claimed he was under the Imperius curse after Voldemort fell, but no one with sense believed him. If he's planting something with Arthur's daughter, it can't be good. Should we warn Mr. Weasley? Harry asked. I'll handle it, Sirius assured him. Best you stay out of it for now. September 1st arrived, and Harry found himself on platform 9 3/4, trunk loaded and Hedwig secure in her cage. Saying goodbye to Sirius was harder than he'd expected. I'll see you at Christmas, his godfather promised, pulling him into a tight hug. And remember, whatever happens at school this year, you can contact me anytime. The mirror works both ways. He was referring to the enchanted two-way mirror he'd given Harry as a parting gift, a matching set that allowed them to communicate face-to-face across any distance. I know, Harry said, embarrassed by the lump in his throat. Thanks for everything, Sirius. The train journey started uneventfully. Harry found a compartment with Ron and Hermione, catching up on their summer activities. Hermione was particularly interested in Harry's ministry encounter. "It's fascinating that they're trying to regulate Phoenix magic," she said, already in full academic mode. "There's virtually no precedent in wizarding law. I looked it up after you mentioned it in your letter, and phoenixes are explicitly excluded from most magical creature regulations due to their unique autonomous nature." "Try telling that to Umbridge," Harry said dryly. "She's determined to classify Fawkes as my pet." Ron snorted. "Good luck with that. Fawkes is brilliant, but he's nobody's pet." The phoenix in question was currently flying alongside the train, preferring the freedom of the open air to the confines of the compartment. Harry could feel his exhilaration through their bond. Their conversation was interrupted when the compartment door slid open, revealing Ginny Weasley, Ron's younger sister who was starting her first year, along with a dreamy-looking blonde girl. "Can we join you?" Ginny asked shyly, her eyes darting to Harry before quickly looking away. "Everywhere else is full." "Course," Ron said. "Ginny, you already know Harry and Hermione. Who's your friend?" "Luna Lovegood," the blonde girl said, her protuberant eyes fixed on the space above Harry's head. "You have a remarkable aura, Harry Potter. All gold and crimson, like a phoenix's wing." Harry blinked, startled. "You can see auras?" Luna nodded serenely. "When the light is right. Your phoenix friend leaves traces in yours. It's quite beautiful." Hermione looked skeptical, but Harry was intrigued. "That's amazing, Luna. Most people can't perceive magical signatures that way. Most people are too busy looking for crumplehorn snorkax to notice what's right in front of them," Luna replied matter-of-factly. Ron mouthed, "What?" to Harry, who just shrugged, finding Luna's oddness refreshing. The journey continued pleasantly until a strange rattling drew their attention to the window. To Harry's alarm, Fawkes was flying directly alongside the train, urgently beating his wings against the glass. "Something is wrong," the Phoenix communicated. "The train won't stop at Hogwarts." Harry frowned. "What do you mean?" "It has to stop at Hogwarts, that's where it's going. Magic interferes with the path. Dark intent." "What's he saying?" Hermione asked anxiously, recognizing Harry's expression as the one he wore when communicating with Fawkes. "He says something's interfering with the train's route," Harry explained, standing up. "I need to check with the driver." He made his way toward the front of the train, passing curious students peering from their compartments. As he reached the engine car, he felt it, a subtle wrongness in the magic surrounding the train. It reminded him of the feeling he'd had around Professor Quirrell the previous year. The driver, a weathered old wizard, looked up in surprise when Harry entered. "No students in the engine car, lad. Rules." "Something's wrong with the train," Harry said urgently. "It's being magically diverted." The driver scoffed. "Nonsense. The Hogwarts Express runs on enchanted tracks that only go to one destination." "Please, just check our course," Harry insisted. "My phoenix can sense magic interference." At the mention of a phoenix, the driver's expression changed. "Your phoenix, eh? You must be Potter then. All right, let me check the orientation charms." He waved his wand over a complex brass instrument. His confident expression faltered. "That's not right, we're drifting northwest. We should be heading due north. Can you correct it?" Harry asked. The driver tried several spells, growing increasingly frustrated. "Something's fighting my control. Never seen anything like it." Fawkes appeared with a flash of fire, materializing inside the engine car. The driver jumped back in surprise. "Merlin's beard. The interference comes from the rear of the train," Fawkes informed Harry. "A powerful dark object is exerting influence." "Fawkes says the problem is coming from the back of the train," Harry relayed. "Some kind of dark object." The driver looked skeptical but didn't argue with a phoenix. "If you're right, we need to find it fast. We're already 10 miles off course, and the deviation is increasing." Harry raced back through the train, following Fawkes's guidance. The Phoenix led him to the very last carriage, where the magical disturbance felt strongest. To Harry's surprise, it emanated from a small trunk partially hidden under a seat. "Caution," Fawkes warned. "The darkness is aware." Drawing his wand, Harry approached carefully. The trunk looked ordinary enough, plain black leather with brass fittings, but when he got closer, he could feel the malevolent magic pulsing from within. "Is anyone sitting here?" he asked the nearest students, a group of Hufflepuff third years. They shook their heads. "It was there when we boarded," one explained. "We thought it belonged to the train." Harry cautiously reached toward the trunk, but before he could touch it, the lid flew open of its own accord. A thick, oily black smoke poured out, forming a vaguely humanoid shape in the air. Red eyes gleamed within the darkness. Students screamed and backed away. Harry felt his Phoenix fire surge in response to the threat, flames automatically wreathing his hands. The smoke creature recoiled from the golden fire. "Everyone out!" Harry shouted, maintaining his fiery defense as the students fled. The smoke being lunged toward him, but Fawkes intercepted with a battle cry that shook the carriage. Where the Phoenix's fire touched the black smoke, it sizzled and retreated. Working together, Harry and Fawkes drove the entity back toward the trunk. "It is a shade, a fragment of dark intent," Fawkes explained. "Not alive, but animated by malice. It seeks to derail the train. How do we stop it?" Harry asked aloud, maintaining a barrier of fire between the shade and the rest of the train. "Contain it in its vessel, then purify with Phoenix fire." Harry nodded, understanding. With a complex motion he practiced with Sirius, he created a vortex of golden flames that surrounded the smoke creature, forcing it back into the trunk. As the last wisps disappeared inside, he slammed the lid shut and placed both hands on the surface. "Incendera Phoenix," he commanded, channeling his power. The trunk began to glow red-hot under his palms, but Harry felt no pain. Phoenix fire couldn't burn its wielder. Golden flames consumed the trunk from the inside out, and a high, inhuman shriek echoed through the carriage. Then silence. When Harry finally removed his hands, only a pile of ash remained where the trunk had been. Within the ash gleamed something metallic, a small silver amulet in the shape of a skull. "Do not touch it directly," Fawkes cautioned. "Though the animating force is gone, the object retains dark properties." Using a handkerchief, Harry carefully picked up the amulet. "We should take this to Dumbledore." The driver appeared at the carriage door, wand raised. "What in Merlin's name happened here?" "The orientation charms just reset themselves. Someone tried to hijack the train," Harry explained, showing him the amulet. "This was controlling it somehow." The driver's face paled. "Dark magic, on my train? That's never happened in all my years." "It's contained now," Harry assured him. "But we should inform the school immediately." Word of the incident spread quickly through the train. By the time they arrived at Hogsmeade Station, slightly delayed but otherwise safely, Harry found himself once again the center of attention, with students pointing and whispering as he disembarked. Professor McGonagall was waiting on the platform, her expression even more severe than usual. "Mr. Potter. I've received a rather alarming message from the train driver. Come with me, please." Ron and Hermione shot him worried looks, but Harry nodded reassuringly. "Save me a seat at the feast if I'm not back in time." McGonagall led him directly to Dumbledore's office, bypassing the usual carriages and entry procession. The headmaster was waiting behind his desk, looking grave. "Harry," he greeted, the usual twinkle in his eyes dimmed. "I understand we owe you thanks for preventing what could have been a serious disaster." Harry placed the handkerchief-wrapped amulet on Dumbledore's desk. This was inside a trunk someone left on the train. It was generating some kind of smoke creature that was diverting the Hogwarts Express. Dumbledore examined the amulet without touching it, his expression darkening. "A conductor's curse, a very old and malicious piece of dark magic," designed to lead travelers astray, usually to their deaths. Who would want to hurt a train full of students? Harry asked, horrified. That, my boy, is the question we must answer, Dumbledore said grimly. This is sophisticated magic, beyond the capabilities of most wizards. McGonagall's lips were pressed into a thin line. Do you think it's connected to last year's events, Albus? It seems likely, Dumbledore agreed. Lord Voldemort may be disembodied, but he still has followers who could act on his behalf. Harry frowned, thinking back to his encounter with Lucius Malfoy in the bookshop. Sir, I saw Lucius Malfoy slip a black book into Ginny Weasley's cauldron at Flourish and Blotts. Sirius said he'd warn Mr. Weasley about it. Dumbledore's eyes sharpened with interest. Did he indeed? Most concerning. I shall make inquiries. In the meantime, McGonagall said briskly, we should get you to the feast, Potter. Your absence has undoubtedly generated enough rumors already. Harry managed to slip into the Great Hall just as the sorting was concluding. He squeezed in beside Ron and Hermione at the Gryffindor table, immediately bombarded with questions. What happened on the train? Ron demanded. Everyone's saying you fought some kind of smoke monster. Is it true the train was being hijacked? Seamus Finnegan asked from across the table. Harry gave them a brief summary, downplaying his own role. Fawkes did most of the work, he insisted. I just helped contain it. But that's incredibly advanced magic, Hermione pointed out. Containing dark entities isn't even covered until Newt-level defense against the dark arts. Phoenix fire works differently, Harry explained. It's naturally opposed to dark magic. Further discussion was interrupted by Dumbledore's start-of-term announcements, including the introduction of their new defense against the dark arts teacher, the flamboyant Gilderoy Lockhart, who stood and gave an elaborate bow to thunderous applause from most of the female students. Bloody hell, Ron muttered. Look at him. Thinks he's Merlin's gift to which kind? Harry had to agree. Lockhart's peacock blue robes and blindingly white smile screamed vanity rather than competence. But the most surprising announcement came at the end of Dumbledore's speech. Finally, I must inform you that this year, Hogwarts will be hosting a ministry observer. Madame Dolores Umbridge, senior undersecretary to the minister, will be making periodic visits to assess certain educational initiatives. A ripple of murmurs spread through the hall. Ministry interference at Hogwarts was unprecedented. She's here because of you, isn't she? Hermione whispered to Harry. Harry nodded grimly. Dumbledore arranged it as a compromise to keep the ministry from restricting my Phoenix magic. Umbridge will be observing my progress. Sounds like a nightmare, Ron commented through a mouthful of roast chicken. Dad says she's horrible, hates anything that's not pure blood or fully human. Then she's really going to hate me, Harry said with a wry smile. Fawkes isn't exactly a standard familiar. Speaking of the Phoenix, Harry realized Fawkes hadn't joined him in the Great Hall. Where are you? He sent through their bond. Flying the grounds, came the reply. Something disturbs the castle's magic. I am investigating. This concerned Harry, but before he could inquire further, he was distracted by Colin Creevey, an enthusiastic first-year who begged to take his picture. So I can prove I've met you, the small boy explained, camera clutched tightly in his hands. Everyone at home said if I got pictures they'd believe me. Harry reluctantly agreed to a single photo, hoping to avoid making a scene. Unfortunately, Draco Malfoy chose that moment to walk by. Giving out signed photos, Potter, he sneered loudly. Can't go anywhere without your fan club, can you? Jealous, Malfoy? Harry replied coolly. I don't see anyone lining up for your autograph. Malfoy's pale face flushed pink. As if I'd want attention from mudblood lovers and camera-toting brats. The slur made Harry's temper flare. Small flames flickered momentarily at his fingertips, a warning sign he'd learned to recognize. Taking a deep breath, he forced himself to calm down. Not worth it, he muttered to Ron, who looked ready to launch himself at Malfoy. Let's go. As they left the Great Hall, Harry couldn't shake a feeling of unease. Between the attack on the train, Umbridge's impending visits, and Fawkes's concern about the castle's magic, it seemed his second year at Hogwarts was already shaping up to be as eventful as his first. Classes began the next day. Harry's schedule was largely the same as the previous year, with the addition of special training sessions with Dumbledore on Wednesday evenings and Saturday mornings, the compromise arrangement to satisfy the Ministry. Their first defense against the dark arts lesson with Lockhart proved to be even worse than Harry had anticipated. After distributing a ridiculous quiz about himself, Lockhart unveiled a cage of Cornish pixies, promptly lost control of them, and fled the classroom, leaving Harry, Ron, and Hermione to clean up the chaos. Can you believe him? Ron fumed as they walked to Transfiguration. Just nip the rest of them back into their cage. He's completely useless. He must know something, Hermione insisted, though she looked less certain than before. Dumbledore wouldn't have hired him otherwise. Dumbledore hired Quirrell too, Harry reminded her. And he had Voldemort sticking out the back of his head. That evening, Harry attended his first private session with Dumbledore. The headmaster's office was warm and welcoming, with Fawkes' usual perch positioned near the desk. "Ah, Harry," Dumbledore greeted him warmly. "Right on time. I trust your first day of classes went well." "Except for defense," Harry replied honestly. "Professor Lockhart doesn't seem to actually know anything about defense." Dumbledore's eyes twinkled with amusement. "Professor Lockhart has a unique approach to education. But we're not here to discuss your other classes." He gestured to a cleared area of the office where a circle had been drawn on the floor, inscribed with various runes. "I've prepared a containment space for our practice sessions. While I have complete faith in your control, it's always wise to take precautions when working with elemental magic." Harry nodded, appreciating the old wizard's thoroughness. "What will we be working on first?" "I thought we might begin with an assessment of your current abilities," Dumbledore said. "Sirius has kept me informed of your progress, but I'd like to see for myself what you can do." For the next hour, Harry demonstrated the various techniques he'd mastered over the summer, from basic fire manipulation to his partially successful attempts at flame travel. Dumbledore observed carefully, occasionally asking questions or suggesting refinements. "Most impressive," the headmaster commented when Harry had finished. "Your control has improved significantly. I'm particularly interested in your progress toward flame travel, a rare ability even among those bonded with phoenixes." Harry wiped sweat from his forehead. "I can create the connection between two fire points, but I can't seem to actually step through." "The block is mental, not magical," Dumbledore observed. "You don't fully trust that the fire will transport you safely." "I guess that's fair," Harry admitted. "Walking into fire doesn't exactly feel natural." Dumbledore chuckled. "Indeed not, for most wizards. But you, Harry, have developed a unique relationship with fire. It recognizes you as its master and would never harm you." "Master isn't the right word," Harry objected. "It's more like a partnership. The fire and I work together." "An important distinction," Dumbledore agreed approvingly. "And precisely why you have achieved such remarkable results. Most wizards attempt to dominate elemental magic, rather than harmonize with it." Their session concluded with Dumbledore setting out a training regimen for the coming weeks, focused on refining Harry's control and expanding his understanding of Phoenix lore. "One more thing before you go," Dumbledore said, his expression turning serious. "Has Fawkes communicated any concerns about the castle to you?" Harry hesitated, then nodded. "He said something was disturbing the castle's magic. He was investigating during the feast." "Yes, I suspected as much," Dumbledore sighed. "The defensive enchantments around Hogwarts have shown subtle fluctuations over the past week. Nothing alarming yet, but worth monitoring. Do you think it's connected to what happened on the train?" "It seems likely," Dumbledore admitted. "Both incidents suggest someone is testing Hogwarts' defenses. I would ask you to remain vigilant, Harry, and to inform me immediately if Fawkes detects anything unusual." Harry promised he would, a sense of foreboding settling in his stomach as he headed back to Gryffindor Tower. The next few weeks passed relatively uneventfully. Classes settled into a routine, with Transfiguration and Charms remaining Harry's strongest subjects, aside from his special Phoenix magic training. Potions with Snape was still tense, though the professor seemed to have developed a grudging respect for Harry's improved brewing skills, a result of Sirius's intensive summer tutoring. Quidditch practice began, with Oliver Wood more determined than ever to win the House Cup in his final year as captain. Harry's natural flying ability, enhanced by his connection to Fawkes, made him an even more formidable seeker than before. "You're flying differently this year, Potter," Wood commented after a particularly grueling practice session. "More. I don't know, fluid. Like you're anticipating the wind currents." Harry hadn't realized it consciously, but Wood was right. His bond with Fawkes had heightened his awareness of air currents and thermals, knowledge that translated perfectly to Quidditch. September slipped into October, bringing chilly weather and the first visit from Dolores Umbridge. She arrived on a particularly dreary Thursday morning, her pink cardigan a jarring splash of color against the grey Scottish landscape. Harry was summoned from Charms to meet with her in an unused classroom that had been temporarily converted into an office. Dumbledore accompanied him, his serene presence a reassuring counterbalance to Umbridge's saccharine malice. "Mr. Potter," she greeted with her falsely sweet smile. "How lovely to see you again. I trust you've been keeping your special abilities under appropriate control." "Harry has been making excellent progress in his controlled training sessions," Dumbledore answered before Harry could speak. "His discipline is quite remarkable for a wizard his age." "Yes, well, I'll need to see a demonstration," Umbridge insisted. "The Ministry can't simply take your word for it, Dumbledore. We need quantifiable metrics." The assessment that followed was clearly designed to provoke a mistake. Umbridge demanded increasingly complex demonstrations, frequently interrupting Harry's concentration with pointed questions or remarks. It took all of Harry's self-control not to rise to the bait. "Now, show me this flame travel ability I've heard mentioned in reports," Umbridge demanded. "Harry is still developing that particular skill," Dumbledore interjected smoothly. "It would be premature to attempt it in a confined space." Umbridge's smile tightened. "Then perhaps Mr. Potter isn't as advanced as you've claimed, Headmaster." Harry felt his temper rising. "I can demonstrate the preliminary phase," he offered, determined not to let her undermine his progress. Before Dumbledore could object, Harry created 2 fire spheres at opposite ends of the room, then carefully established the golden thread connecting them. The link held steady for nearly 30 seconds, his best yet, before he released it. "As you can see," Dumbledore said calmly, "the foundation work is progressing nicely. Full flame travel requires a perfect harmony of intent that typically develops around magical maturity." Umbridge made several notes on her clipboard, her expression unreadable. "Very well. The Ministry will expect to see continued progress at our next assessment. I'll be visiting monthly, rather than quarterly, given the sensitive nature of these abilities." After she'd gone, Harry slumped into a chair. "She's looking for any excuse to classify me as dangerous, isn't she?" "I'm afraid Madame Umbridge has a rather narrow view of what constitutes acceptable magical practice," Dumbledore replied diplomatically. "But you handled yourself admirably today, Harry. Don't let her provoke you into a demonstration that might be misconstrued." "I'll try," Harry promised, though he wondered how long he could maintain his composure under Umbridge's thinly veiled hostility. The next major event came in mid-October, when nearly headless Nick invited Harry to his Death Day party on Halloween. Out of politeness, Harry agreed to attend, bringing Ron and Hermione along for moral support. The party, held in one of the larger dungeons, was a decidedly gloomy affair. Hundreds of pearly-white ghosts drifted through the space, the temperature was freezing, and the refreshments were all rotted to appeal to ghostly guests who could only taste food when it was highly putrid. "I'm starving," Ron complained after they'd been there for an hour. "Can we go up to the feast now?" Harry nodded, having fulfilled his social obligation to Nick. Let's go. As they made their way back upstairs, Harry suddenly stopped. Do you hear that? Hear what? Ron asked. Harry tilted his head, listening intently. That voice, it's saying something about killing. Danger, Fawkes's voice echoed in his mind, the phoenix appearing in a flash of flame above his head. Ancient enemy awakes. There. Harry pointed, breaking into a run. It's moving upward. I think it's going to kill someone. He sprinted up the stairs, following the chilling voice that neither Ron nor Hermione could hear. They emerged into a deserted corridor on the second floor, where Harry skidded to a halt, gasping for breath. It stopped, he panted. I can't hear it anymore. Harry, what's going on? Hermione demanded, looking frightened. What voice? Before he could answer, Fawkes let out a warning trill, drawing their attention ahead. There, on the wall, illuminated by flickering torchlight, was a message written in what looked horribly like blood: the Chamber of Secrets has been opened. Enemies of the air, beware. Beneath the message, hanging from a torch bracket, was Mrs. Norris, Filch's cat, stiff as a board and apparently dead. We should go, Ron whispered urgently. We don't want to be found here. But it was too late. The sound of the Halloween feast ending filled the air, and within moments, the corridor was packed with students who fell silent at the grisly tableau. Enemies of the air, beware. Draco Malfoy shouted, pushing to the front of the crowd. You'll be next, mudbloods. Filch arrived seconds later, his scream of rage at finding Mrs. Norris echoing off the stone walls. He immediately accused Harry, but Dumbledore's timely arrival prevented the situation from escalating further. The headmaster examined Mrs. Norris carefully before announcing, "She's not dead, Argus. She has been petrified. Ask him how he did it." Filch shrieked, pointing at Harry. "No second year could have done this," Dumbledore said firmly. "It would take dark magic of the most advanced. He did it." Filch spat. "You saw what he wrote on the wall." "I never touched Mrs. Norris." Harry protested. "I don't even know what the Chamber of Secrets is." Snape suggested that Harry might have simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time, though his tone implied he didn't believe it himself. After further discussion, Dumbledore dismissed the students, asking Harry, Ron, and Hermione to remain behind. Once the corridor had cleared, Dumbledore turned to Harry with grave concern. "You mentioned hearing a voice, Harry." Harry nodded, explaining what he'd heard. "It was talking about killing, about being hungry for so long. Fawkes appeared right after I heard it." Fawkes, still circling overhead, trilled anxiously. "Ancient enemy. Serpent of Slytherin. What's he saying?" Dumbledore asked, one of the few who knew of their mental communication. "Something about an ancient enemy," Harry translated. "The Serpent of Slytherin." Dumbledore's expression darkened. "I feared as much. The Chamber of Secrets is said to house a monster placed there by Salazar Slytherin himself, a creature only his true heir could control. But what does that have to do with Harry hearing voices?" Hermione asked, perplexed. "That, Miss Granger, is a question we must answer quickly," Dumbledore replied. "For now, I would advise all of you to be extremely cautious. If the chamber has indeed been opened, no one at Hogwarts is entirely safe." In the days that followed, the school could talk of little else but the attack on Mrs. Norris. Filch kept the memory fresh by pacing the spot where she had been attacked, as if the attacker might return to the scene of the crime. Harry noticed Ginny Weasley seemed particularly disturbed by the cat's fate. "She's a cat lover," Ron explained dismissively, but Harry wasn't convinced that fully explained her pale, withdrawn demeanor. Hermione, meanwhile, had become obsessed with learning about the Chamber of Secrets. Their first clue came from Professor Binns, who reluctantly recounted the legend after Hermione's persistent questioning during History of Magic. The story goes, Binns had explained in his dry, dusty voice, that Slytherin had built a hidden chamber in the castle, of which the other founders knew nothing. Slytherin, according to the legend, sealed the Chamber of Secrets so that none would be able to open it until his own true heir arrived at the school. The heir alone would be able to unseal the chamber and unleash the horror within, to purge the school of all who were unworthy to study magic. Muggleborns, Hermione had whispered, connecting the dots. Their research continued in the library, where they learned that the chamber had supposedly been opened once before, about 50 years ago. A student had died, and the person believed responsible had been expelled. But who was it? Harry wondered. And why can I hear the monster when no one else can? Because you speak its tongue, Fawkes explained when Harry posed the question to him later. The serpent's voice is not audible to ordinary wizards. Serpent? You mean it's a snake? Harry asked, startled. And what do you mean I speak its tongue? You are a Parselmouth, one who speaks to serpents. It is a rare ability, often associated with Slytherin's line. This revelation disturbed Harry deeply. But I can't be related to Slytherin. The Sorting Hat put me in Gryffindor. Abilities do not always follow bloodlines directly. And sometimes, they can be transferred in unusual ways. Before Harry could press for clarification, they were interrupted by the arrival of the Gryffindor Quidditch team for practice. The conversation about his unexpected ability would have to wait. The first Quidditch match of the season, Gryffindor vs Slytherin, took place the following weekend. Harry was determined to beat Malfoy, who had secured the position of Seeker on the Slytherin team through his father's generous donation of Nimbus 2001 brooms for the entire team. The match began well, despite the superior speed of the Slytherin brooms. Harry's experience and natural flying ability kept him competitive as he searched for the snitch. Then, something odd happened. A heavy black bludger began targeting him exclusively, ignoring all other players. Someone's tampered with this bludger. Fred Weasley shouted, batting it away from Harry for the 6th time. Despite the Weasley twins' best efforts, the rogue bludger continued its relentless pursuit. After a mid-air conference, Harry made a bold decision. Leave it to me, he called to Fred and George. I've got a plan. The plan, such as it was, involved using the bludger's single-minded focus against the Slytherin team. Harry led the iron ball on a wild chase through their formation, disrupting their plays while simultaneously searching for the snitch. The strategy was working until a momentary distraction cost him. The bludger slammed into his arm with a sickening crack. White-hot pain shot through Harry's body, but through watering eyes, he spotted the snitch hovering near Malfoy's left ear. Gritting his teeth against the pain, Harry dived. With his good arm outstretched, he snatched the snitch from right under Malfoy's nose, then crashed heavily into the mud. We've won, he muttered, fighting to stay conscious as the bludger continued its attack, now aiming for his head. Finite incantatem. Hermione's voice rang out, and the bludger exploded into dust. The next few minutes were chaos. Gilderoy Lockhart appeared, insisting he could fix Harry's broken arm. Before anyone could stop him, he'd cast a spell that removed all the bones from Harry's arm instead of mending them. You idiot, Harry groaned, looking at his rubbery, boneless limb. I needed those bones. In the hospital wing, Madame Pomfrey was furious. You should have come straight to me, she raged, holding up a bottle of Skeelgrow. Growing bones back is a nasty business. The potion burned Harry's throat, promising an uncomfortable night ahead. His friends were eventually shooed away, leaving him alone with his thoughts and the throbbing pain where his arm bones were slowly regenerating. He was almost asleep when Fawkes appeared silently at the foot of his bed. You were brave today, the Phoenix communicated. But the danger grows. The bludger was cursed, Harry stated rather than asked. Just like the train. Someone at Hogwarts wants me dead. Or removed, Fawkes corrected. If death were the goal, more direct means would be employed. Before Harry could respond, the hospital wing door creaked open. Dumbledore backed in, wearing a long woolly dressing gown and nightcap, carrying what appeared to be a statue. Professor McGonagall followed a moment later, carrying the statue's feet. Together, they placed it on a bed. "Get Madame Pomfrey," Dumbledore whispered, and McGonagall hurried past Harry's bed. Harry lay very still, feigning sleep. He heard urgent voices, then Madame Pomfrey's shocked gasp. "What happened?" she asked. "Another attack," Dumbledore answered gravely. "Minerva found him on the stairs." "There was a bunch of grapes next to him," said Professor McGonagall. "We think he was trying to sneak up here to visit Potter." Slowly, carefully, Harry raised himself a few inches to look at the statue on the bed. A ray of moonlight illuminated its face, Colin Creevey, his eyes wide and his hands still raised, holding his camera. "Petrified," whispered Madame Pomfrey. "Yes," said McGonagall. "But I shudder to think. If Albus hadn't been on the way downstairs for hot chocolate, who knows what might have." The three of them stared down at Colin. Then Dumbledore leaned forward and pried the camera from the boy's rigid grip. "You don't think he managed to get a picture of his attacker?" McGonagall asked eagerly. But when Dumbledore opened the back of the camera, a jet of steam hissed out, carrying the acrid smell of melted plastic. "The film has been completely melted." "What does this mean, Albus?" McGonagall asked urgently. "It means," Dumbledore replied, "that the Chamber of Secrets is indeed open again." Harry's blood ran cold at the confirmation. As the teachers continued their hushed discussion, he noticed Fawkes had moved to Colin's bedside, tears dripping from his eyes onto the boy's frozen hand. "Phoenix tears cannot heal this petrification," Fawkes explained sadly. "Only the defeat of the basilisk will restore those affected." "Basilisk?" Harry whispered, suddenly understanding. "That's the monster in the chamber?" "Yes. Ancient enemy of phoenixes, king of serpents. Its gaze kills, but these victims saw it indirectly. The cat threw water, this boy threw his camera." "I have to tell Dumbledore what you've told me," Harry said urgently. "He suspects already, but lacks confirmation. The knowledge of the basilisk's presence is yours to share, but be cautious. The heir is watching." The next morning, Harry related his conversation with Fawkes to Ron and Hermione in a secluded corner of the hospital wing, while Madame Pomfrey examined his newly regrown bones. "A basilisk?" Hermione gasped. "That explains everything. Harry can hear it because he's a Parselmouth, and no one else understands because he's hearing Parseltongue. But how's a giant snake moving around the school without being seen?" Ron asked skeptically. "Someone would notice a bloody great serpent slithering down the corridors." "Pipes," Harry realized suddenly. "It's using the plumbing. That's why I kept hearing the voice in the walls." Hermione's eyes widened. "That makes perfect sense. And it explains why Fawkes is so concerned. Phoenixes and basilisks are natural enemies according to Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them." "We need to tell Dumbledore," Harry said firmly. "With confirmation about what the monster is, maybe he can find the chamber and end this before anyone else gets hurt." But when Harry was finally released from the hospital wing, he discovered that approaching Dumbledore wouldn't be so simple. The password to his office had changed, and the Gargoyle Guardian refused to budge without it. "It's urgent," Harry insisted. "I have information about the Chamber of Secrets." The gargoyle remained immobile. Harry was about to give up when Professor McGonagall happened by. "Potter? What are you doing here?" "I need to speak with Professor Dumbledore," Harry explained. "It's about the chamber, I know what the monster is." McGonagall's expression tightened. "I'm afraid the headmaster is not available, Potter. He's been called to London for an emergency Wisengamot session. Something about proposed regulations on magical hybrids." Harry's heart sank. "When will he be back?" "I couldn't say. But you can tell me what you've discovered, and I'll ensure he's informed upon his return." Harry hesitated, then shared what Fawkes had revealed about the basilisk. McGonagall's face paled as he spoke. "A basilisk," she whispered. "Of course, it fits the evidence. I'll contact Dumbledore immediately. In the meantime, Potter, I must ask you to remain vigilant but not to take any risks. This creature is extraordinarily dangerous. Yes, Professor, Harry agreed, though he silently wondered what constituted a risk in a school that potentially housed a giant, deadly serpent. The next few weeks were tense. Dumbledore returned, confirming Harry's information about the basilisk but explaining that finding the entrance to the chamber was proving difficult. The castle has been searched many times over the centuries, he told Harry during one of their training sessions. Including 50 years ago, when the chamber was last opened. If the entrance were obvious, it would have been discovered. Sir, Harry asked cautiously, who opened the chamber last time? Dumbledore's expression grew troubled. The culprit was officially identified as a student named Rubeus Hagrid. Hagrid? Harry exclaimed incredulously. That's ridiculous. He'd never, I quite agree, Dumbledore interjected. Which is why I fought to keep him on as gamekeeper after his expulsion. However, the true heir of Slytherin was never caught. As November turned to December, a second attack occurred, this time on Justin Finch-Fletchley and nearly headless Nick. The school was in a panic, with many students suddenly remembering urgent business at home just before the Christmas holidays. Harry found himself under renewed suspicion, particularly after an incident in dueling club where he had inadvertently revealed his Parseltongue ability while stopping a snake from attacking Justin. Despite his clear intention to help, many students now believed he might be the heir of Slytherin. This is ridiculous, Hermione fumed in the library as they researched basilisks. Anyone who knows you would realize you'd never attack Muggleborns. I mean, I'm Muggleborn, and you haven't tried to kill me yet. There's still time, Ron joked weakly, earning a glare from both of them. The Christmas holidays provided a welcome respite. With most students gone home, the castle was quiet and peaceful. Harry, Ron, and Hermione used the time to continue their investigation, focusing on the identity of the heir. Their breakthrough came from an unexpected source, Moaning Myrtle, the ghost who haunted the girls' bathroom on the second floor. Have you ever wondered how Myrtle died? Hermione asked one day as they passed near her bathroom. She was a student here 50 years ago, around the time the chamber was last opened. When questioned, Myrtle was unusually forthcoming. Oh, it was dreadful, she said with morbid delight. I died right here in this very stall. I'd hidden because Olive Hornby was teasing me about my glasses. I was crying, and then I heard somebody come in. They said something funny, a different language. And I realized it was a boy, so I opened the door to tell him to go away, and then, Myrtle swelled importantly, I died. Just like that? Harry asked. How? No idea, Myrtle said dramatically. I just remember seeing a pair of great, big, yellow eyes over by that sink. My whole body seized up, and then I was floating away. Harry examined the sink she'd indicated. It appeared ordinary except for a tiny snake scratched onto one of the copper taps. That tap's never worked, Myrtle said as he tried to turn it. Harry stared at the small snake carving, a wild idea forming. This is it, he whispered. The entrance to the Chamber of Secrets. They reported their discovery to Professor McGonagall, who immediately summoned Dumbledore back from another ministry meeting. The headmaster confirmed their suspicion. The girls' bathroom contained the entrance to the chamber. However, he cautioned, opening it requires a Parselmouth. And entering would be extremely dangerous without proper preparation. I can open it, Harry volunteered. And Fawkes can help, phoenixes have power against basilisks. Dumbledore's expression was troubled. Your courage does you credit, Harry, but I cannot allow students to face such danger. The staff will handle this matter. Harry reluctantly agreed, though he, Ron, and Hermione kept close watch on the bathroom entrance, half expecting Dumbledore to organize an expedition into the chamber. But days passed with no apparent action. Why aren't they doing anything? Ron wondered after a week. The monster's still out there. I think they're waiting for something, Hermione theorized. Maybe they need special equipment to fight a basilisk, or they're bringing in experts. Their answer came in early February, with the arrival of Dolores Umbridge for her monthly assessment of Harry. This time, she brought reinforcements, 2 Aurors and a representative from the Beast Division. The Ministry has concerns about the recent attacks, she informed Dumbledore in Harry's presence. Concerns that perhaps certain, unusual magical influences might be contributing to the problem. Her meaning was clear, she suspected Harry and his Phoenix bond had something to do with the Chamber of Secrets. Harry has been instrumental in identifying the nature of the threat, Dumbledore countered firmly. His connection with Fawkes has provided valuable insights that might otherwise have eluded us. Yes, his connection, Umbridge simpered. That's precisely what concerns the Ministry. Unregulated magical bonds, especially with creatures of fire, present inherent dangers. We've received reports that Mr. Potter can speak to snakes, a rare ability typically associated with dark wizards. Combined with his Phoenix fire, it represents a concerning concentration of volatile magic. Harry couldn't contain himself. Are you suggesting I'm responsible for the attacks? That's ridiculous. Mind your tone, Mr. Potter, Umbridge warned. I'm merely pointing out that unusual magical circumstances warrant careful investigation. The Minister feels a more direct Ministry presence at Hogwarts may be necessary until this situation is resolved. The standoff between Dumbledore and Umbridge was interrupted by Professor McGonagall bursting into the office, her face ashen. Albus, another attack. And this time, a student has been taken into the chamber itself. She handed him a small piece of paper. This message was found on the wall beneath the first one, her skeleton will lie in the chamber forever. Who? Dumbledore asked, his voice sharp with concern. Ginny Weasley, McGonagall replied grimly. Harry felt as if the floor had dropped from beneath his feet. Ron's little sister, the quiet, shy girl who'd been looking increasingly ill all year. I knew something was wrong with her, he whispered. She hasn't been herself lately. This changes matters, Dumbledore said decisively. Minerva, gather the heads of houses and begin evacuating the school. Madam Umbridge, I believe this situation now falls under emergency protocols, which supersede ministerial oversight. Umbridge's face flushed with anger. Now see here, Dumbledore, but the headmaster had already swept from the room, McGonagall hurrying after him. Harry stood frozen, his mind racing. Then Fawkes appeared in a flash of flame, landing on his shoulder. The girl still lives, the Phoenix communicated urgently. But her life force fades. The air drains her to fuel his return. His return? Harry repeated, alarmed. Who? Tom Riddle. The true heir of Slytherin. The one who became Lord Voldemort. The revelation hit Harry like a physical blow. Voldemort is in the castle. How? Through an object of dark magic, a diary. The girl has been possessed through it all year. The Black Book, Harry realized, remembering what he'd seen Lucius Malfoy slip into Ginny's cauldron. We have to help her. Fawkes trilled in agreement. The Serpent King can be defeated, but only by one who speaks its language and wields the fire of rebirth. Harry made his decision instantly. Take me to the chamber entrance. With another flash of fire, Fawkes transported him directly to Myrtle's bathroom. Harry barely had time to orient himself when Ron and Hermione burst in. Harry! Hermione exclaimed. McGonagall told us about Ginny. We've been looking everywhere for you. I know what happened to her, Harry said quickly, explaining about the diary and Riddle's possession. Fawkes says she's still alive, but fading. I have to get into the chamber now. We're coming with you, Ron declared, his face pale but determined. Harry shook his head. It's too dangerous. The basilisk will kill with a single look. Then we'll close our eyes, Ron said stubbornly. She's my sister, Harry. I'm going. Knowing there was no time to argue, Harry turned to the sink with the snake carving. Concentrating on the tiny serpent, imagining it was real, he spoke, open. Except it wasn't English that came out, but a strange hissing sound, Parseltongue. The sink began to move, the entire fixture sinking out of sight to reveal a large pipe, wide enough for a person to slide into. That's the entrance to the Chamber of Secrets, Harry confirmed. We need to tell a teacher, there's no time. Ron insisted. Ginny's down there with that thing. I'm going, Harry decided. Ron, you and Hermione go find Dumbledore or any teacher. Tell them what we've discovered and where I've gone. No way, Ron began, but Hermione grabbed his arm. He's right, Ron. We'll bring help faster than if we all go down. Harry has Fawkes, he's not alone. Reluctantly, Ron agreed. You'd better bring her back, Harry. I will, Harry promised, then turned to the opening. With Fawkes on his shoulder, he lowered himself into the pipe and let go. It was like rushing down an endless, slimy, dark slide. The pipe twisted and turned, sloping steeply downward. Harry could see smaller pipes branching off in all directions, confirming their theory about the basilisk using the plumbing system. Finally, the pipe leveled out, and Harry shot out of the end, landing on the damp floor of a dark stone tunnel. Fawkes provided enough light to see by, his feathers glowing softly in the darkness. Caution, the phoenix warned. The serpent may be near. Harry proceeded carefully, his wand drawn, following the tunnel until he reached a solid wall on which two entwined serpents were carved, their eyes set with great, glittering emeralds. Open, Harry said again in Parseltongue, and the serpents parted as the wall cracked open, the halves sliding out of sight. He was standing at the end of a very long, dimly lit chamber. Towering stone pillars entwined with more carved serpents rose to support a ceiling lost in darkness. At the far end, a giant statue of Salazar Slytherin loomed, his ancient, monkey-like face staring down at Harry. And at the statue's feet lay a small, black-robed figure with flaming red hair, Ginny. Harry ran toward her, praying he wasn't too late. As he approached, he saw another figure standing nearby, a tall, handsome boy of about 16, oddly blurred around the edges, as if viewed through a misted window. Tom Riddle, Harry guessed, recognizing the future Voldemort from the memory in the diary that had been possessing Ginny. Riddle smiled, a cold, calculating expression. Harry Potter. I've been waiting to meet you. Let Ginny go, Harry demanded, kneeling beside her motionless form. Her skin was white as marble, but he could detect shallow breathing. I'm afraid I can't do that, Riddle said softly. She has a purpose to serve. You see, as poor Ginny grows weaker, I grow stronger. Soon, I will leave the pages of the diary and be fully alive again. You're stealing her life force, Harry realized with horror. A crude way of putting it, but essentially correct, Riddle agreed. It's a shame you arrived so early, I'd hoped to complete the process before you came. But perhaps it's better this way. Now I can finish what I started 11 years ago. Harry's eyes darted around the chamber, looking for the basilisk. Where is it? Your pet. Riddle laughed, a high, cold sound. Worried about the basilisk, Harry? It will come when called. But first, I have questions for you. His gaze fixed on Fawkes. A phoenix familiar? Most unusual. The boy who lived continues to surprise. I'm full of surprises, Harry replied, slowly positioning himself to shield Ginny's body. Like knowing exactly who you are, Lord Voldemort. Riddle's eyes gleamed. Dumbledore's been sharing secrets, has he? Yes, I am Lord Voldemort. Or rather, a memory of the greatest wizard who ever lived, preserved in a diary for 50 years. Albus Dumbledore is the greatest wizard, Harry countered. Dumbledore has been driven from this castle by the mere memory of me. Riddle hissed. He's never gone, Harry replied, not as long as those who remain are loyal to him. Fawkes trilled in agreement, the sound echoing powerfully through the chamber. Riddle flinched at the phoenix's cry. A pretty bird and brave words, Riddle sneered. But they won't save you. Let's match the powers of Lord Voldemort, heir of Slytherin, against the famous Harry Potter and his pet phoenix. He turned to the statue of Slytherin and hissed in Parseltongue, "Speak to me, Slytherin, greatest of the Hogwarts Four." The statue's mouth began to open, widening into a huge black hole. Something stirred within, something huge was slithering out of its depths. "Close your eyes," Fawkes commanded, launching from Harry's shoulder as the basilisk emerged. Harry squeezed his eyes shut, listening to the massive serpent hit the stone floor. Riddle's voice came again, commanding the basilisk in Parseltongue, "Kill the boy. The phoenix is yours to feast upon first, if you can catch it." Harry heard the giant snake moving toward him, its scales rasping against the stone. Then came the sound of Fawkes's battle cry and the enraged hissing of the basilisk. "The eyes," Fawkes communicated. "I have taken them. You may look, but remain vigilant. Its bite is still deadly." Cautiously, Harry opened his eyes. The enormous serpent, bright, poisonous green and as thick as an oak trunk, was thrashing in the center of the chamber. Fawkes circled its head, where blood streamed from ruined eye sockets. "No!" Riddle screamed. "Leave the bird. The boy is behind you. Smell him." The blinded basilisk swayed, its tongue flicking the air, turning its head toward Harry. He backed away, but found himself cornered against a wall. The serpent struck, but Harry rolled aside, feeling its head slam into the wall where he'd been standing. "Help me!" Harry called out in desperation, not to Riddle, but to the basilisk itself, instinctively using Parseltongue. "He's using you, just like he's using Ginny." The basilisk paused, its head swiveling toward Harry's voice. "Don't listen to the boy," Riddle commanded, also in Parseltongue. "Kill him now." The basilisk seemed momentarily confused, caught between conflicting orders from two Parselmouths. Harry seized the opportunity. "Fawkes, we need to destroy the diary. It's the source of Riddle's power." The phoenix dove toward the small black book lying beside Ginny's unconscious form, but Riddle was faster. He snatched up the diary and held it high. "You'll have to go through me to get it," he taunted. "And I control the King of Serpents." The basilisk renewed its attack, lunging blindly at the sound of Harry's movements. He dodged again, but tripped over debris, sprawling painfully on the stone floor. The serpent loomed over him, its massive head poised to strike. In that moment of crisis, Harry's phoenix fire responded instinctively. Golden flames erupted around him, forming a protective barrier between himself and the basilisk. The great serpent recoiled from the fire with a pained hiss. "What is this magic?" Riddle demanded, his confident demeanor slipping for the first time. Harry climbed to his feet, the golden flames swirling around him like a living cloak. "Phoenix fire," he answered, advancing toward Riddle. "The magic of rebirth and purification. The opposite of your dark soul magic." Fawkes circled above, trilling encouragement. "The fire answers your need. Direct it with purpose." Understanding, Harry extended his hands toward the diary in Riddle's grasp. Streams of golden fire shot from his palms, wrapping around the small black book like fiery tendrils. "No!" Riddle screamed, trying to maintain his grip, but the phoenix fire was too intense. The diary burst into flames, bright golden light spilling from its pages. Riddle howled in agony as the same fire seemed to consume him from within. His form distorted, stretched, and then, with a final, terrible scream, shattered into fragments that dissolved into the air. The basilisk, freed from Riddle's control, thrashed in confusion. Harry, acting on instinct rather than thought, approached the massive serpent. "Be at peace," he hissed in Parseltongue. "Your master is gone. You can rest now." Whether it was his words or simply the creature's time to die, the basilisk gradually stilled, its breathing slowing until, with a final exhalation that stirred Harry's hair, it expired, a massive predator that had lived for 1,000 years, finally at rest. Harry rushed to Ginny's side. Color was already returning to her cheeks, and as he watched, her eyelids fluttered open. "Harry," she whispered, disoriented. "What, where am I?" "The diary, Tom." Her eyes widened in horror as memory returned. "Oh, Harry, I tried to tell you at breakfast, but I couldn't. It was me, but I swear, I didn't mean to. Riddle made me." "I know," Harry soothed, helping her sit up. "It's over now. The diary's destroyed, and Riddle's gone." Ginny's gaze moved past him, and she gasped at the sight of the massive basilisk corpse. "Did you?" Before Harry could answer, multiple voices echoed through the chamber entrance. Moments later, Dumbledore appeared, followed by Professor McGonagall, Professors Snape and Flitwick, and, to Harry's surprise, Sirius Black. "Harry!" Sirius rushed forward, engulfing him in a fierce hug. "When Dumbledore contacted me," he broke off, overcome with emotion. Dumbledore surveyed the scene, the dead basilisk, the charred remains of the diary, the phoenix fire still flickering around Harry's hands, and the recovering Ginny Weasley. "It seems," he said quietly, "that we arrived too late to be of assistance." "Professor," Harry began, but was interrupted by the arrival of two more figures, Cornelius Fudge, the Minister of Magic himself, and Dolores Umbridge, both looking thunderstruck at the tableau before them. "Good heavens," Fudge spluttered, taking in the enormous basilisk. "Is that the monster from the Chamber of Secrets?" Dumbledore confirmed. "A basilisk, as we suspected. And now, thanks to Harry Potter, no longer a threat to Hogwarts." Umbridge's eyes fixed on the golden flames still dancing around Harry's fingertips. "The boy used unregistered fire magic against a Class XXXXX creature." Her voice was faint but calculating. "Without ministry supervision or authorization." "The boy," Sirius growled, his arm protectively around Harry's shoulders, "saved an innocent student's life and eliminated a 1,000-year-old threat to the entire school. If you're looking for someone to blame, I suggest you start with whoever planted that cursed diary on Ginny Weasley." "Quite right," Dumbledore agreed. "A matter requiring thorough investigation. But first, let us see Miss Weasley safely to the hospital wing." As Professors McGonagall and Flitwick helped Ginny to her feet, Harry noticed Snape examining the remains of the diary with keen interest. "You destroyed this with Phoenix Fire?" the potions master asked, his voice neutral but eyes sharp. Harry nodded. "It was possessing Ginny, draining her life to restore Riddle, Voldemort." Snape and Dumbledore exchanged a significant look. "Most illuminating," the headmaster murmured. The return journey through the pipes was facilitated by Fawkes, who transported them directly to the entrance hall in groups of 2 and 3. By the time they reached the hospital wing, news of the basilisk's defeat had somehow spread through the castle, and a crowd of students and staff had gathered. Mr. and Mrs. Weasley were already there, having been summoned when Ginny was taken. Mrs. Weasley's tearful gratitude was overwhelming, while Fudge seemed something went wrong with this response. "Please try again. Continue straight to the next chapter." The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.